All-star game in the rearview mirror. We press on in the middle of summer. Welcome in. Hope your Wednesday is off to a good start. Thanks for letting us be a part of your routine this morning. See LeVar and DC up early with us on the YouTube live stream, up and rolling on Facebook and Twitter as well. And Bill was that guy last night on the social media. He was that guy leading the charge, the anti-All-Star game brigade. Just didn't like him, huh? Just wanted to be the traditional, old school, that guy.
I was going to relive my youth. I needed it to be completely like I am accustomed to it. Do not stray from me if I'm going to tune in and go to some kind of weird blue and all white. That's part of the All-Star game. Everybody's got their own respective team jerseys on. That's a tradition, right?
Apparently not anymore. No, I'm with you. It goes universally not well received yesterday based off of any kind of social media feedback that I saw. American League wins at 5-2. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., a massive 468-foot home run, while during the broadcast they're talking to Fernando Tatis Jr. at shortstop, and he just, as soon as it was hit, before it was hit, he was talking about how they're so close and they've had very similar lives growing up, son of major leaguers, and then he just puts his hands on his head as soon as that thing was hit. Like, whoa. What do you think about the in-game interviews? I've told you this before. I'm a fan because it's unlike any other situation I feel like we get in sports. I feel like I get a sense of the personality of players a lot better because they're just comfortable just hanging out on the field. It's not exactly what they're saying or the whole thing, or it was a little bit too exactly what the last pitcher was saying when he was mic'd up going in for the game. That delay button wasn't quite working as well. They had wanted it to, I think, on that one. But I am a fan of those interactions. It does get a little bit overboard, I think. Like Freddie Freeman is kind of made for that. Fernando Tatis Jr. not as much. Just maybe not as seasoned. Probably hasn't just done it as much and not as experienced in first of all the All-Star game, but then the interaction as well. Bill, what'd you make of the on-field in-game interviews?
Yeah, I liked it. I'm with you. I mean, there was a lot of really good ones last night, and miking up the coaches, doing everything. I think the game was a little boring, but that's all right. I actually think that they did a very good job of being able to, the uniforms aside, the fact that it was 5-2, I thought it was actually a quality product that was produced last night by Fox, and being like you said, being able to mic up the players in a more relaxed, loose setting, and getting some insight, and just being able to cut up and get some personality. I was sitting with some guys yesterday afternoon. We were just kind of talking about it. I was rattling off some of the names some of the young up and coming names like Tatis, like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I even mentioned a Mike Trout. Like, these are guys that you don't see. They don't. I've been a big believer that Major League Baseball does a poor job of marketing its young up and coming stars and showing personalities that can either draw you to those guys or make you not like them. We'll get into that maybe a little bit more because I watched the DeChambeau, both Bryson DeChambeau and Brooks Koepka doing their media sessions yesterday over at the Open. But yeah, baseball doesn't do a good job of that. And I thought last night was a great job, a fantastic job by baseball to highlight some of that and show off their young players. And really, again, kudos to Fox. Outside of the uniforms, which they had nothing to do with, that was a very good product that was put on television and kind of enjoyable.
I think it's 8 in a row now for the American League over the National League. Former Gamecock Whit Merrifield did strike out in his only plate appearance, I believe. I'll go double check that box score, but that's the one that I remember. I felt bad for Whit, especially. They were talking about what a hitter he was and the whole deal. Actually, he went 0 for 2 on strikeout last night, and then couldn't make contact in his one strikeout there. But they certainly were talking him up, and it's going to be interesting to keep an eye this point too. I think thought of as a pretty high prospect of getting traded from Kansas City as the trade deadline looms not too long away from now. And he'll definitely have some suitors out there, and is just continuing to do what he does. Second All-Star game appearance, and what is it, 10 years ago, I guess 11 years ago, about this time, a couple of weeks ago, leading the Gamecocks to the first national championship. And the career he's had, absolutely tremendous from the former Gamecock perspective there. From the much more current, much more closer to former Gamecocks, guys have played much more recently for Carolina, I'm trying to say. A couple of guys drafted yesterday, Julian Bosnick on the mound, and Daniel Lloyd rounded out for Gamecocks. 8 total Carolina players taken in the Major League Baseball draft, and those guys taken in towards the final rounds yesterday. And Carolina up amongst the top programs in the country for most guys drafted. Again, kind of the continuation of the story that we talked about yesterday, Bill, with 6 guys going in between rounds 2 and 10, and Carolina was second in the country with that number, or third in the country, I should say, behind just a couple other programs in Florida and Texas Tech. So the entire fully formed picture now of the 2021 season for Gamecock baseball. I know what we thought, talented guys, and like you were talking about yesterday, especially from the pitching standpoint, need to get more production from the lineup, and now need to replace 6 guys who are drafted in Major League Baseball in the 20 round draft this year to move forward in 2022. And it won't be easy necessarily for Mark Kingston, but it never is in the SEC. We know that, and the path back to Omaha is never an easy one, Bill. Or where do you feel like Gamecock baseball sits as they now recover from the 2021 Major League Baseball draft and move forward?
Well, I'll admit I did not see anything yesterday that seemed to indicate who exactly was going to sign yesterday. Did I miss that? Did I just, when you say replace guys, do we know particular guys that are definitely going to sign?
No, I think it's going to be the obvious first round draft pick there. The infielder that from the state of Tennessee that they didn't think was going to come to school anyway, and maybe 2 more guys that were moving on. But like you mentioned yesterday, some social media news about guys who made the decision to come to school and not go to Major League Baseball, or to professional baseball, I should say. Clemson football, a couple of those guys as well, like Will Taylor's Dutch Fork, even though he did get drafted in the 19th round. The Rangers kind of taking a flyer on him. His dad putting out the news, making sure everyone knows very clearly that he will be part of Clemson football moving forward, and does not plan on being eligible to be a professional baseball player until 3 years from now in 2024.
Yeah, I was just kind of wondering. You mentioned, was it Lloyd in the 14th round, Bosnick in the 16th round. You would assume both of those guys are going to return. I did see John Whittle report yesterday. I'm not going to say I knew anything about this guy, but Drew Baker, a junior college pitcher who John Whittle reported with the Big Spur would have gotten a strong look at a weekend rotation spot, has elected to sign with the Phillies. I think that was probably a loss, but I don't think South Carolina's still going to have Will Sanders back, and we'll kind of see who else they build around. What happens with Bosnick? You've got some other guys there. It's going to be about the lineup. It's going to be about how can South Carolina get production from their bats, and that's what I'll look forward to. And I got to admit, I have no clue about the incoming guys and who can step in and help immediately, or what guys that are currently on this team maybe make big strides in the off season. Maybe if there's a change with how the Gamecocks approach the plate, and maybe a different philosophy, or what happens there. So a lot that I think you'll see that we don't know just yet as they get into fall ball and move forward. But certainly we know that they've got to be better when it comes to attacking the bat, or attacking the plate, and getting some runs across.
And Travis hits us up on the Facebook live stream, says, is it not a wasted effort to recruit the kids will be a top 30 pick? I guess if just one turns down the big signing bonus, it's worth it, but it seems like you'd focus more on the guys just outside that area. And it's easy for us to see it from the outside looking in, but when these recruiting relationships start, a lot of times these days, especially, you're a freshman kind of late in the game, you're a sophomore in high school. A lot of times these relationships start sooner than that. But you can guarantee that these programs understand if a guy continues to progress and is projected to be a first round draft pick, that they have the backup plan well in place. And they realize where the college baseball opportunity lines up with that. And that's what the best programs have every year, right? You got guys who are either they're going to make a great decision one way or another, right? They're going to make seven figures, or they're going to head to a tremendous college baseball program. And I wouldn't call it a wasted effort, but from the outside looking in, it's not like these college baseball programs, Bill, are in a home or on the phone constantly with these top prospects towards the end in the last several weeks and making the pitch and the whole thing. It's usually pretty well known once it gets to a certain point that if a guy is going to be a first round draft pick, that it was a good effort and no hard feelings and the whole deal, but it's life-changing money and you can't turn it down, and you move on to professional baseball. And the big time college baseball program, no matter who it is, Carolina, Clemson, or fill in the blank, they move on to their next option. And you go like that with the 11.7 scholarships. It's always a massively tricky time for college baseball programs out there with the Major League Baseball draft involved. Did see John Gilreath yesterday announcing he's going to come back to Carolina and continue his college baseball career. So that's another name to add to the mix for Skylar Meade and company from the pitching perspective, which they'll have to replace a lot, but that's kind of what most college baseball programs are at that level every single year for sure. And Gamecock baseball, no different. Gamecock football, Bill, I wanted to get into a really interesting article from Josh Kendall combining with the Clemson beat reporter from The Athletic, Grace Rayner, and talking to several high school football coaches around the state. And Josh actually joined Heath Klein yesterday on Game Time to talk a little bit more about it. But it was about how recruiting has gone through the years from the high school football coach's perspective. This was borrowed, I think, from an idea that was done on The Athletic in the state of Ohio originally. And kudos to Josh and Grace for making the South Carolina version. It was really interesting to me to see how coaches perceive both South Carolina's last couple of coaches, Steve Spurrier and Will Muschamp, because knowing the public perception and how especially they were perceived in recruiting, Bill, and then to hear it from some high school coaches who had anonymity in this thing, that was kind of the allure of the article, in my opinion, that these guys didn't have to put their name to it, so they could feel it a little bit more free to be totally honest. It was an interesting take on college football recruiting in the state of South Carolina. I think maybe the big disappointment for a lot of us reading in this thing is that Carolina and Clemson do not talk poorly about each other, do not negatively recruit against each other, at least according to these high school football coaches who had anonymity. Does that surprise you at all, having covered recruiting as long as you have in this state?
Yeah, no, not really for these two programs. I mean, the differences are pretty easy to figure out. I do know there's been an instance or two where there's been some negative recruiting, but I think by and large, when you're talking about high school coaches, I definitely don't think it happens. The high school coaches are back and forth. They're friends with guys on the staff. You don't really want to do that because you know that's going to get back to the other staff. You know, if you're South Carolina and you say something, it's going to get back to the Clemson staff. You say Clemson staff, say something, it's going to get back to the South Carolina staff. So no, I really don't think they do that. I know that there's been a time or two that it's happened with certain players. I remember way back when I was doing the recruiting that certain players would mention, well, you know, this coach said something and that coach said something, and it was on both sides. It was on both sides of the fence there. So I'm not saying it's one school or the other. But again, I think it's very rare just because when you're in the same state like this, while there can be animosity, I think you try to limit what you say regarding your opponent. Now it's totally different when you start going outside of the state. You don't have those connections, and you want to put down Georgia, you want to put down North Carolina, you want to talk about why it's a good idea if you don't want to go down to the state of Florida and play your college ball. So that's a little bit different there when you talk about negative recruiting. But no, I'm just thinking back now as you say that to how many interactions I had with in-state players during my time working with ESPN and the Big Spur and covering recruiting. And very rarely, again, I can only think of about 2 or 3 instances where a kid would kind of off the record say, yeah, this coach said that about Clemson, or yeah, that coach said this about South Carolina. And it's kind of a turnoff, I think, for a lot of kids, and definitely would be a turnoff for high school coaches. So I'm not really surprised that there's not a lot of negative recruiting.
Other interesting part to me was the Will Muschamp tenure, really, in that one. There were a couple of coaches that said, yeah, no one's recruited our program harder than Will Muschamp, and he was the guy, and he's one of the best recruiters that I've seen for South Carolina. And then there was 1 or 2, I think, that said, yeah, I always got the feeling that they were kind of looking down the nose to our program or to us, and they didn't do as good a job as could have been done. And just really interesting to see those different perspectives on both Will Muschamp and then Steve Spurrier, obviously. I felt like you got a little peek behind the curtain there with some high school coaches understanding that Steve Spurrier was just different, but some of them enjoyed their interactions with Steve Spurrier, and some of them just had none and kind of resented him. One coach said, yeah, one time he almost ran over me with his golf cart. I was out of practice, and that's the closest as I got to talking to Steve Spurrier. About what I would have expected about the Spurrier era, maybe not quite so much with the Will Muschamp impressions, Bill.
Yeah, I mean, Spurrier was well known as not going to do much in terms of recruiting. I remember a conversation, I think I brought up, it was a linebacker, a national recruit that actually kind of grew up in Lexington and then moved. And the way that they did his recruitment, the way his mother handled his recruitment, was they did the original Skype meetings. Now we call them Zoom meetings that we've all learned to handle the last 15, 16 months or so. But they would do Skype meetings. And I think South Carolina had a chance to get this linebacker who I think now plays. I know he plays in the NFL. I think he plays with the Eagles. And it was Jordan Hicks. I'll just go ahead and say it was Jordan Hicks. And South Carolina, I think, had a chance because there was some connections to Lexington. I think they could have gotten him back. That was when South Carolina was really getting going. And I remember telling one of the coaches about this recruiting plan, and he just looked at me and was like, yeah, we're not getting Spurrier on a Saturday morning on a Skype during the off season. Like, we're not even going to recruit. We're not even going to bother with that. So, and I think that's what made the Marcus Lattimore, the cha-cha slide or whatever he did, so funny to so many people, is that Spurrier actually went out of his way. I think it was James Bates did all those funny kind of videos about Spurrier. And I think one of them was talking about Spurrier on the recruiting trail. He's basically like, you can come here and win. You can go there and lose. It's up to you. Doesn't matter. We'll win without you. So he was not a guy that was going to go and do it. Will Muschamp, look, I still think Will Muschamp recruited well. I don't think he did better than Steve Spurrier. I don't think he did worse than Steve Spurrier. It was about average for what South Carolina does. It was usually between 16 and 22, I think, was his typical class, until the very last one when it was clear he was going to be fired and, he couldn't get anybody to commit. But I do think I have heard that with Muschamp. I don't think there was a lot of gray area. He was either really good with certain programs, or like the one right down the road at Dutch Fork, where he didn't offer Jalen Hyatt and some other guys. I don't know what the issue was there. So I can see where there's certain coaches who would not be a fan of the way Will Muschamp treated some in-state programs.
Well, the impressions of Shane Beamer and the new coaching staff unanimously positive in that article about what is going on currently. And I think it does go back to the experience that Shane Beamer had, the reputation he kind of established back in the day as an assistant coach under the Steve Spurrier regime. And good news for Gamecock fans from that standpoint. But the articles on The Athletic that we're discussing there by Josh Kendall and his Clemson counterpart, Grace Rayner, about the recruiting in the state of South Carolina through the years, with some anonymous high school coaches and their takes. Interesting stuff for sure. Recommend that if you would like a morning read, and if you're not on the Athletic, it's certainly worth it, in my opinion, to get their coverage. It's just a little bit different, and they have something nearly for everyone, and very, very often and worth your while, in my opinion. 803-404-6100 is the number into the program. If you would like to join, love to have you this morning. Good to see that Team USA bounced back in basketball, blew out Argentina last night. Chris hits us up on the Facebook live stream, says, y'all see the excuse Team USA was using? They're saying that they're not getting the same foul calls that they do in the NBA. So basically, they're saying they're a little soft. LOL. I don't know how many people are LOLing about that here in our country, but it is good to see the losing streak to not continue for Team USA. A 28-point win against Argentina out in Vegas as the exhibitions continue. As do we, as we continue to roll on here, just getting going on a Wednesday morning. Glad you're a part of the program. All-Star game, little Gamecock football recruiting. Who knows where else this show will go? It's the early games. Listen,
the home of the Gamecocks and new head football coach Shane Beamer, 107.5.
Oh, big morning. A lot of fun getting ready for the British Open tomorrow and a great weekend. Maybe I'll even take a look at my mortgage statement. Just make sure everything's still good. Throw that in with the fun. And then once I take a look at it, I'll take that information and call Jacob Crowder and Brian Kovar, the mortgage guru team with First Palmetto Bank. You need to do the same. Trust me, you'll enjoy it. You need to look at your mortgage statement, see what your interest rate is, maybe what kind of equity you got, and then call Jacob and see what he can do for you. You never know until you make that phone call. 803-719-1005. One little phone call takes 5-10 minutes. It might end up saving you a whole lot of money that you can get back. If you've got equity currently in your house, you can use that. A good buddy of Jacob and Brian's recently was able to refinance, save money by lowering his interest rate, get money back, and then put a basketball court in his backyard for his son. Just a thought, but it takes 5 to 10 minutes. If you just make that phone call, you go over the information with Jacob and Brian, and again, see what they can do for you. 803-719-1005. You can email them, the letter J, Crowder, CROWDER at firstpalmetto.com. And again, that phone number, 803-719-1005. It's the Mortgage Guru team. Jacob Crowder, Brian Kovar with First Palmetto Bank.
Thanks for setting that up.
No problem on all right. All right, let's see. I know what I was going to do. It was the British Open, and I wanted to see what the television coverage situation tomorrow was.
Should be live when we're on, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be live.
Maybe
I just can't remember what channel they showed it yesterday because I've been watching it. Those two interviews with Koepka, those two press conferences with Koepka and DeChambeau were pretty entertaining.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that coming back. Is it Cameron Smith's on record about Patrick Reed being a cheater, and they're in the same group? I've seen.
Oh, I didn't see that. Oh, good. So let's see here. TV coverage from 4 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Golf Channel.
Man, it is hot out here.
So yeah, I'll be able to get up and have the TV on here and check it out. Yeah, there's no gators that are out. This gator, wait, on a gator or multiple gators in Lake Murray. I saw the one story about the one alligator up around Buffalo Creek, but I haven't heard about multiple gators. Guess I should check out the news.
Nope, Travis, it is July. Well, slow news time.
One guy took a picture. Nobody has actually seen this gator. Well, one guy took a picture, but there wasn't really one of South Carolina's largest breweries is coming to Columbia in 2022. That'll make Patrick happy. I don't really see anything.
So if we hear that one of the weekend delicacies at Bill's house for cooking is gator tail, we'll know that he took care of business out there.
We have cooked gator tail. Put it in the cast iron skillet. And put some blackened seasoning on it. We did that a couple weeks ago. Might go to Old Timey. That might not be a bad idea. Go to Old Timey and pick up some gator tail.
No, you need to go catch it.
Well, he's got to come around here. He's got to be in the lake first. Then he's got to come around here. Alligator is good. I agree. Alligator is a delicious dish.
Never tried.
It's good. A little tougher kind of meat. You need to season it right. I prefer to have it with some good, with a good dipping sauce. The one at Private Property is what I prefer, spicy. No, you don't do gator in the microwave, David. You definitely don't do it.
Yeah, if it's tougher, you're going to lose me right there.
Yeah, it's just a little, but it's good. It's full of protein.
Gives me too much time to think as to what it is.
Too much time. It's alligator. That's what it is. It's alligator.
I've got a separation thing, like I said, eating a chicken sandwich and then seeing chickens running around in the backyard at a restaurant. It's like, nope, I'm done. To go box. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's normal. Just we're getting ready to head back in.
Oh. Y'all sent me down. I was trying to actually do work here, and then I got stuck on the.
There he is. Haven't heard from Chavo lately. You got him going with the Gators.
All right, guys, Rip.
We will avoid continuing the alligator discussion that has broken out on the live video stream, Facebook, YouTube, live, Twitter as well. Station handle at 1075 The Game. Easiest way to find that video stream if you'd like to join us that way. However, you're joining us this morning. We appreciate it. British Open tees off tomorrow, Bill. You've been enjoying some pre-British Open hype or chatter discussion. The back and forth between DeChambeau and Brooks Koepka continues.
Yesterday was interesting. I've had it on through the day, and they're doing their media sessions. And I think if you had a chance to watch it yesterday, if you got into it a little bit, I'm not as anti Brooks as Bryson DeChambeau as I used to be. I'll admit that I was far more anti Bryson DeChambeau a year ago. And then I kind of came around on him. I think it was the Palmer tournament. It was one of the tournaments down in Florida. And he was hitting those monstrous drives, and I think it was a par 5, and he went way over the water, and almost I felt like did it for the fans more so than himself, and trying to get a good score. And he turned around and celebrated. And I kind of came around on him a little bit, and saw a guy there who is kind of enjoying himself. But then you watch as you mentioned, you watch a week ago the match, and you hear him just talking and talking and talking, talking and talking. And then yesterday, if you had a chance, nothing, I wouldn't say there was some funny quotes from both of them. I gotta remember Koepka. Let's start with this. Koepka's at the podium and looks relaxed and loose, and it's just kind of cutting up about the situation. He does say that Bryson is basically fair game, and that he's not going to stop taking shots at him. And basically, just was like, this is. He says, Koepka said, we had a conversation at Liberty, and he didn't hold up his end of the bargain, and I didn't like that. So I'll take my shots. So Koepka's basically all in on this, and then, but he looked relaxed, and I think it was Koepka yesterday. I want to see if I can find the exact comment. They asked about being paired together for the Ryder Cup. What happens if you guys get paired together? And basically, Koepka's like, that's not the worst idea. He goes, for 7 days, I can set aside what's going on. And he goes, and Koepka said, it might actually be pretty good because the other team might not know what's going on. It might confuse the other team so much they don't know what's going on between us, and it's going to throw them off their game a little bit. And then he went on to say, but obviously that's not going to happen. We're not going to be paired together. And he went on to say, it's not like we'll be hanging out and slapping high fives and having late night conversations at the Ryder Cup. But then DeChambeau goes up there and he just looks defeated and downtrodden.
Defensive, right?
And almost
just,
woe is me,
right.
And so it was just two different personalities yesterday. We'll get more into some of the actual comments they made, but certainly an intriguing kind of back and forth right now that's happening on the PGA.
I guess my question is, where does this go? How long do we stay interested in this, or does this remain a thing? As I say it, I think the answer is as long as they're factors in big time tournaments and there's interaction, I think that's how long it goes. I feel like if neither one contends and they don't end up playing in the same group, then we're not going to be as interested as we have been recently. It definitely has helped that DeChambeau was in the match and was on display. We got to hear a lot more and see a lot more of him during that exhibition not too long ago, and that he's been a factor in majors recently. So I think this will kind of naturally play out one way or the other, because it doesn't seem like either one of these guys necessarily wants to continue this. I would say Koepka seems to be enjoying it a lot more than DeChambeau, maybe.
Right.
But I don't know, because I have nothing to compare this to. Do you, from a golf perspective? I don't even know if we could moving over to a different type of sport just because golf is so unique and in the relationships that individual golfers have with others, because they're not really playing the other guy necessarily. They're always playing the course, and that's where their focus is. And I just don't remember anything anywhere close in the ballpark that it played out amongst fans like this little rivalry continues to play out week after week, and this year especially really kicked off, I think, for most of us with that Golf Channel interview being released that never aired, and seeing it like that so palpably, the disdain for each other, or maybe the disdain that Koepka has for DeChambeau on display in that one.
Yeah, and you got DeChambeau. I'm going back and just reading all the exact quotes yesterday, and DeChambeau was asked strictly about it, and he said, besides, anyway, he was just talking about how this all has kind of come about. And he said, "I'm just here to play golf and focus on that. If we want to keep bantering back and forth, obviously being respectful and keeping line."
Oh, might have had a bit of a technical glitch with Bill over there. Maybe Bryson DeChambeau got in the works somehow. I don't know. We'll see if we can't fix that and get Bill back on his gas bagging hot take as we continue to roll on this morning. Certainly not all about the British Open. The All-Star game last night, the American League, a 5-2 winner. Former Gamecock Whit Merrifield did not get a hit in his 2 at-bats, but did end up on the winning side of things. What do you guys think of the uniform and the presentation last night? The uniforms and a universally not well received on social media, at least. The Hank Aaron tribute was, I guess, merited and certainly a good try, but I think doing it in Denver as opposed to where it was originally set in Atlanta, certainly rubbing a lot of Braves fans, longtime Braves fans, the wrong way, as well as that I've seen on social media. And then an article from The Athletic about college football recruiting in the state of South Carolina through the years, how it's gone between Carolina and Clemson, all on my mind, at least, as we continue on a Wednesday morning. Love to hear from you at 803-404-6100. Brad, hit us up with an article in the Charleston Post and Courier about why South Carolina should pay Dawn Staley more money and make sure that she stays happy. Maybe we'll get into that conversation as well. Glad you're a part of the show. It's the early game. It's 107.5 The Game. How about that? It just disappeared on us. Sometimes we've had the dropout from an audio standpoint or the dropout from the live stream. I don't think we've ever had both like that. Let's have a little fun with this. Morning, Trey. Maybe Trey just pushed the button, pushed the eliminate Bill from the live stream and radio show button this morning. I guess somebody could have pulled the plug on his internet at home. Oh, the Gator got him, huh? Nice. I think we would have seen it, though. That's the brilliant part about Bill's setup. Maybe it was underneath. He said
it's where the entire internet system apparently just went down. So, can't do that.
The entire internet system.
I know. Does sound like a Gator issue.
Yeah, Craig, we've talked about it a little bit this morning. We will continue to talk about it. Good article for sure.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh yeah, the live stream's been glitchy all morning. Apologies, sir. Good analogy on the text line about the DeChambeau and Koepka situation.
All right, so we're heading back in. He's cutting in and out. I'm not sure what's going on.
You're talking about on the access?
Mm-hmm. I was talking to him, and then he just went away again.
So should I not plan on having him?
I would not plan on having him, correct.
Okay, just type in the old live stream chat otherwise.
Yep.
Thank you.
What? Europe?
Bill working through some internet issues at his house this morning. I'm really amazed it doesn't happen more often, actually. He was there with us on the radio show and on the live video stream, and then he wasn't. The old Bryson DeChambeau hot take got him. We'll see if we can get him back as soon as possible. Efforting that behind the scenes, the great Jen Jensen actually produces from the Herndon Chevrolet Studios. Just to add that to one of her tasks this morning. Anonymous texter just hit us up on the Cool Care Heating and Air text line talking about this DeChambeau and Koepka thing, and I mentioned I don't know what in the world to compare it to from what we've seen in sports. We've always had rivalries, but never anything quite like this. Because I don't like either guy. I'm not a fan of either guy. But golfers especially, to me, they don't get much leeway. It's because, first of all, I'm already bitter that they're that much better at me at golf to begin with as I'm watching them, right? And it seems like that is a great life to live, right? You're playing at all the best courses, and I understand from following, especially some former Gamecocks, Kyle Thompson kind of being the first. He's just a couple years younger than me, I think. And then now watching Wes Bryant, having him hit us up on the text line every so often. It's not certainly as whitewashed and all rainbows and sunshine as I think we can make it out to be as fans just watching on TV. The grind in golf is real, and it is so difficult to make it to that top level. There's no doubt about it. I mean, the expenses that you have to put out to grind on many tours to get there and the whole thing. I don't mean to say that golfers just live a charmed life and it's really easy and it's the whole thing, but it comes across that way sometimes, especially for a guy like Bryson DeChambeau, who was one of the best college golfers in the country at SMU, and then boom, pretty much instant success on the PGA Championship, or on the PGA Tour, I should say. And then Brooks Koepka is just an odd guy, having gone to Florida State and then basically kind of earning his way onto the PGA Tour through the European Tour, going a different route, and then the way that he has emphasized the majors and not had a whole lot of success outside of them. It's been an odd path. But I'm trying to admit my bias for being able to be rubbed the wrong way pretty quickly by guys at the highest level of golf just because of, I wish that was me. But then to see the way that both of these guys have handled this thing, it's just odd to me. And the comparison from the texter on the Cool Care Heating and Air text line is another couple of guys that I think go down in my lifetime as just being easy to dislike in Barry Bonds and Jeff Kent, the texter says. That's the closest thing he can think of the feud between Bryson DeChambeau and Brooks Koepka. And that's a good one because they were teammates, right? Didn't make much sense. They were both really, really good players on the San Francisco Giants. And you could argue Barry Bonds, one of, if not the best player of all time, and take out the PEDs and the whole conversation there. But clearly not one of the best teammates of all time. And Jeff Kent kind of held him accountable. And Craig, Bryson DeChambeau didn't go to Georgia Tech. Got to check that one. And if he did, he certainly didn't finish up there. But a lot of good golfers have gone through Georgia Tech. DeChambeau's an SMU guy, I believe. But my point here is that that's a great analogy, I think, because neither Jeff Kent nor Barry Bonds came off looking very good, and I couldn't figure out necessarily who the villain and who the good guy was in that one. I guess most people took Jeff Kent's side as opposed to Barry Bonds just because of Bonds' just massive issues with seemingly everyone on the outside of his inner circle. But I guess Koepka is more of the fan favorite in this little rivalry on the golf course. I don't know. I do want to talk about the story from The Athletic that has come out yesterday about college football recruiting in the state of South Carolina, and Shane Beamer, the impression that he has given high school coaches. It was about a dozen high school coaches given anonymity, and anonymity is difficult for me to say. They could speak anonymously, I'm trying to say, and give their thoughts about maybe the different ways that Clemson has done things through the years versus South Carolina and the different coaches. And Craig just wanted to bring up the difference in the way that Will Muschamp handled high schools as opposed to Shane Beamer, and that the word loyalty or authenticity, I think, popped in my head. I think we have Bill Gunter back now. Bill, you're the resident recruiting nerd. Is that the best way to describe maybe the perception? Because I feel like South Carolina is such a small state, and the roots of especially high school coaches are so deep a lot of times that these relationships are maybe a little trickier and more sensitive than others across the country, or maybe all those relationships are about the same. But I guess my point is that you can't fake it when it comes to giving attention and establishing those type of relationships from the perspective of being the head coach at the University of South Carolina with the state's high school coaches. Is that fair, Bill? Well, it was also interesting, too, that these different coaches had different perceptions of Will Muschamp. Some of them spoke very glowingly of Muschamp and the job he did in recruiting, and some of them did not. It seems like universally they all speak highly of Shane Beamer. I guess my point is that you got to be the same guy to the high school coaches, whether they got a guy that you can use that year or you can't, and that kind of follows your reputation. We'll see how we follow up hour number one. Coming up next here on 107.5 The Game. Yep, sorry about that on the live stream, guys. Bill just popped in radio-wise. We'll get it back.
Okay.
Let me double check my Bryson DeChambeau background here. No, I'm not going to BrysonDeChambeau.com, dude. realize he was a California guy. Yeah, he's definitely an SMU guy. Couldn't fit a stereotype better, I don't think, as far as the SMU reputation. I think lived in Texas for a few years, and it is definitely known as an upper echelon type place, let's say. Buddy that went to TCU, and TCU is known as that too, I think, in the state, but not quite as much as SMU. A lot of nice cars. A lot of kids drive nice cars at those schools. Let's put it that way. No problem. Yeah, a lot of dudes did. Let's see. Who's on the tour right now from Georgia Tech? It's Kuchar, who's kind of the face of that program to me. David Duvall was. Puggy Blackman ran it for a while. What's the credit for Duvall? Trying to think of more recent examples. I guess Georgia's kind of taken over more as the better golf school in recent PGA Tour guy. Alabama's really been good lately. Justin Thomas, company. Who else? Arizona State. Tough to beat Mickelson and John Rahm right now. Coastal's got to find another guy besides Dustin. Reading this is the most dramatic soccer article that I've ever read in my life, that the Real Madrid former president there's been audio recordings leaked from 2012 and 2006 calling guys imbeciles or fools or something. Ronaldo. Unbelievable.
Okay, so
What's that?
I was talking with Bill, and the Verizon stick that he uses, for the access unit, that's back, but there is an outage for his internet. So right now he can't cheat and look like he's smart by looking up information. Of course, can't do the live stream either. So we're going to keep him kind of honest for a little bit, because I don't know how fast he can type in his phone if he's trying to look up stats. So
nice. All right, so I'm going to switch the audio right this second anyway over to the radio stream. I got to move my car out of the garage, get the kids ready for camp real quick. So that's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
So I'll end up leaving this up. My shot will be up so you guys can hear at least what's going on the radio.
Cholesterol is part of a heart-healthy diet.
Oh, hey, Buzz.
Okay, well, let's try it again.
Smile on my face.
Nope, that's still happy.
Have a change of heart with Honey Nut Cheerios. Learn more about Honey Nut Cheerios by picking up a box at your local store.
Your experience matters. At University of Phoenix, relevant life experience and eligible transfer credits can help you earn your degree faster and for less. In fact, undergrads who apply these credits, on average, save about 1 year and $11,000. Get the credit you deserve for time spent in the classroom, on the job, and in life. And see how much you can save at phoenix.edu. That's phoenix.edu.
Getting you to the good half of your week. It's the Hump Show on After Hours.
We encounter this every week. If you're in your middle night of the work week, or you're not even at your hump day yet and already feeling like it's been a long week, that's how I feel. It's way too early in the week to be this tired. So I brought extra coffee. We'll be ordering food because it's Hump Show. It's the middle show of the work week.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Major League Baseball has changed in many ways, but one thing that doesn't seem to change, the result of the All-Star Game. The American League wins again. They beat the National League in Denver's Coors Field 5-2, their 8th straight win in the Midsummer Classic. 22-year-old Vladimir Guerrero Jr., the game's MVP. The Toronto first baseman homered, a homer that traveled almost 470 feet. He drove in 2, and he became the youngest MVP in the history of the All-Star Game. And one of his division rivals is American League All-Star and Rays catcher Mike Zunino, who had a chance to enjoy Guerrero's talents on this night.
I mean, he's a special type of talent. Playing him as many times as we do, there's no break, especially with that lineup with all the starters they had. No, just seeing him do that is incredible and just sums up the first half he's had.
And Zunino had a moment to remember. He homered in the 6th to help the American League tack on. That audio courtesy of Fox Sports. Shohei Ohtani made history, the All-Star Game's first two-way player, the starting pitcher, and he got credit for the win, and he was 0 for 2 as the starting DH. Milwaukee's Corbin Burns took the loss. Liam Hendricks the save. AL wins again 5-2. Rob Manfred says that 7-inning doubleheaders and the automatic runner at second base and extra innings are likely to be eliminated beginning next season. And Manfred also indicated baseball might regulate the way teams use defensive shifts. The U.S. national basketball team bounced back from exhibition losses to Nigeria and Australia. They beat Argentina 108-80. Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal each scored 17 for the U.S. This is Beal.
Every single day we have to get better. And that's how we're taking it. We're taking it a day at a time. Today we got better. Still a lot more we can improve.
Classic. We can't make Craig happy this morning. Shambo's not going to Georgia Tech. Bill's on a live video stream.
I put up a sign.
Oh. Nice. What does it say at the bottom?
I said, "Oh, you can't. You shut me down." So we couldn't talk.
That's awesome.
All right, let's head back in the open. No, to me that would be like phone.
Or worse. It's the early game with Tim and Bill.
All right, guys are up.
Talk a little golf this morning. DeChambeau and Koepka rivalry a day ahead of the British Open teeing off. Also, I'm with you, Bill. I'm not a fan. I don't know of anyone who liked the All-Star Game uniforms last night. I did like watching the game. It was a solid, I think, presentation. I get it if you're a Braves fan and you're just bitter that it wasn't in Atlanta last night and you're not happy with the Major League Baseball decision to move that thing over to Coors Field in Denver. But I thought it was overall a pretty impressive show that was put on for the Home Run Derby, the All-Star Game as well. A pretty solid display of the best in the major leagues, and former Gamecock Whit Merrifield on display, his second All-Star Game last night. Unfortunately for him, didn't get a hit, but was part of the winning team, 5-2. I think it's 8 straight for the American League in the All-Star Games. And talking a little college football recruiting, coming off of an article from The Athletic yesterday, talking about just through the years, the differences from the high school coach's perspective in recruiting for Carolina and Clemson. Is that a fair summary of where we sit as we get going here in hour number 2, sir?
Yeah, no, I think it's I think it's more than a fair summary. I feel very out of sorts right now. I was telling Jen in the break, my internet is down here, and so my television's not working, my live stream's not working. I feel like I'm doing radio in the 18th century right now, not having all the gadgets I've become accustomed to having over the last several months with the live stream and everything. So I'm a little out of sorts. But yes, you that would all sound correct.
Well, on the live video stream as well, just the comments absolutely flooding in about how no one gets to see you in the witness relocation program or the protection program and the usual Lake Murray sunrise shot that we've grown accustomed to here in the last couple of weeks. And the eye candy that is Bill Gunter up on video is not happening right now on Facebook and YouTube Live, Twitter as well. And Jen is clearly missing you in that way.
Let's go with that.
It's okay. I'm communicating with Jen via text message. Again, it's like doing radio in the 18th century. I don't know how I'm supposed to do this right now. I can't see you. I can't. It's everything is just back through the little box, like when we originally started. I feel like I'm all the way back in March of 2020.
Okay, I think this works well then. In that article from The Athletic about recruiting, certainly the recruiting game has changed a bunch, and especially here in the last year plus with the programs having to deal with all the COVID restrictions and the virtual visits and all the Zoom calls and the whole deal. The challenge was extreme, I think is the best way to put it, when Shane Beamer and company took over because of that unique situation. But now it has changed in the last 6 weeks or so with things opening up in June, and you've seen a massive influx of recruiting commits to the Carolina football program. Now, the article that I'm referencing from Josh Kendall, he actually joined Heath Klein last night. You can listen to that interview in its entirety on our podcast page. If you want to go to 1075thegame.com, you can hear it straight from Josh's mouth. But the takeaway from the article that I have, it was coaches around the state of South Carolina with varying levels of experience, but all given anonymity so they could kind of speak freely and ask questions about, hey, how does Clemson approach recruiting compared to Carolina? How's the new coaching staff doing with Shane Beamer and company? Got any good Steve Spurrier or Dabo Sweeney stories? Some of the questions that were asked, and it was a really interesting article in a lot of different ways. But where I want to start, Bill, is with where we are right now and the challenge that Shane Beamer and company have. What kind of advantage do you feel like Shane has specifically as a first-year head coach, but having been a recruiting coordinator for Steve Spurrier, having the experience that he did with the Gamecock football program more than a decade ago, signing some really good players, having those former players to kind of rely on as well in the hip pocket to go to? Or is that overblown when it comes to kind of what have you done for me lately, and now it's a bit of a different game, especially sitting in the head coach's chair?
Well, I think there's a lot to South Carolina recruiting right now, and some of it is changed drastically since the time that Shane was here. There's good things, such as a lot of the kids that you're kind of recruiting right now do remember South Carolina being a very good program. They remember Jadeveon Clowney and Connor Shaw and those guys. They don't remember, 1990s and 1980s and all of the below average past. That's really good. I think too often people talk about the entire tradition or heritage of a football program. Well, the kids you're recruiting, fans remember that. The kids you're recruiting don't. The kids that you're recruiting remember from what they saw growing up at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, so forth and so on. And so you get these programs that come along now, and if you've done something worthwhile in the last 10 years, those kids kind of remember it and can relate back to that and go, oh, yeah, I saw Jadeveon Clowney. I remember that. I saw Melvin Ingram and Stephon Gilmore. So that's a positive, and that's something that Shane didn't have to work with the first time. Now, the negative is Georgia's always recruited well. Clemson's always recruited well, but they're not the juggernauts that they are today. And I know that they both go national, but still in the Southeast, they can go and get pretty much and go at least get into a kid's home with no problem whatsoever. Shane didn't have to deal with that previously. You didn't have Clemson and Georgia producing wins and being the programs that they are today. Georgia was good, don't get me wrong, and Georgia's always been good. Clemson's gone to another level, but those are two programs right here that you've got to compete with within, about 180-mile radius of you. Throw in what Mack Brown's doing at North Carolina. Obviously Florida State, Miami have always been that way. but it's more difficult today with the way Clemson is, with the way Georgia is, than it was 10 years ago. And so that's a different side of it. And so when you ask, what does he maybe have that's on his side? Well, right now he has a vision. He doesn't have results, right? Like Muschamp was a pretty good recruiter when he was still trying to sell his vision. When the kids started seeing the results, that's when things really started to taper off. And that's what's, Shane's going to have for a year, maybe 2, is still trying to sell that vision and being able to sell the facilities and the energy. If results come this year, if you can somehow find a way to get to a bowl game, then you can look at that and say, hey, look at what we did. Now you come in and you're a big time recruit. You can come play with us and maybe you can take us to that next level. You go 4-8, you're still trying to sell your vision of, hey, look, we were rebuilding to begin with. We need you to come and help be a part of this rebuild. So there's pros and cons to what Shane's dealing with nowadays as opposed to what he was dealing with 10 years ago.
But what about, I think a big pro that you didn't touch on there is his prior experience and maybe having a much better understanding of the unique seat that he's sitting in as the head coach of the University of South Carolina. That, well, Will Muschamp might have understood it, but he did bring in the baggage with him of failing at Florida and maybe having relationships around the SEC, but not necessarily uniquely in the state of South Carolina. Doesn't Shane have the advantage of being in the state and having his boots on the ground, being the recruiting coordinator around the state, and having those prior relationships? That does mean something in recruiting still, doesn't it?
Well, the prior relationships he was going to have regardless, or he should have had, because he recruited obviously at Virginia Tech, he recruited at Georgia. So, there were those relationships previously. But when you talk about the previous time here and everything, that's why I pointed out the pros and cons of how different the recruiting job is today versus what it was 10 years ago. That's what I mean.
But so you don't think those relationships have as much value as we sit here in 2021 as they did in 2011 or 2001, 91, 81?
Well, I mean, I think that high school coaches come and go. And so, I'm trying to think. I'm sure, again, I feel like I'm way behind because I don't have my computer in front of me or I'm able to use that stuff. But if you think about coaches that have changed, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, coaches. I'm trying to think when Shane was here 10 years ago, Bobby Carroll was the coach at South Point.
Right.
Well, now it's Devontae Holloman. So that's obviously a very close connection that Shane has with South Point, which has been a very good place for South Carolina over the years. Tom Knotts, I believe, was not at Dutch Fort 10, 12 years ago. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't, but I think
time moves so fast. I don't know. It's a good point. It's a good question.
But my point is, Shane had those connections. He probably talked to Tom when he was at Georgia and probably at Oklahoma. So, those connections there. But again, the high school connections change over time. He's got really good connections from his time up in Virginia. Pete Limbo's had really good connections in the Pennsylvania area, and that might come to fruition again today with another big commitment. So, yeah, I understand what you're asking about the connections, but I also think as a college coach, you always have those things. And certainly I do think, I think the good side or the upside to what you're trying to say is Shane does see some of the issues or is familiar with the issues that the South Carolina program as a whole faces. And that's going into the state of Florida to recruit, again, trying to deal with Georgia, now having to deal with Clemson, more so than when he was here previously. So there are some significant changes, but also, yeah, you're right. The connections that he has from his time here previously certainly doesn't hurt.
Well, to me, it's a tricky situation when you're at the University of South Carolina specifically, because state coaches in the state of South Carolina believe they are owed a certain amount of attention from the University of South Carolina head football coach. And obviously you can't be everywhere at one time. And clearly with the state size, what it is, you can't just recruit in the state of South Carolina. But the feeling that I got from the article by The Athletic was that Will Muschamp did not value South Carolina guys or coaches necessarily more than he valued some of his prior relationships. And actually, it was the opposite. He seemed, if there was going to be a choice between a 3-star guy from the state of Florida and a 3-star guy from the state of South Carolina, it seems like from some of these anonymous coaches that the previous coaching staff was going to take the guy in Florida. And I do think there is some inherent advantages to taking an in-state guy, especially when you're playing other states that have better reputations, maybe from a high school football standpoint, like Georgia and Florida. I think there is that chip on the shoulder, and that's where you're getting that welcome home message, I think, from Shane Beamer. And that's one of the things that stuck out to me in this article anyway, that Dabo Swinney seems to have done a good job into maintaining relationships across the state of South Carolina through the years and understanding the importance of doing that, as opposed to Will Muschamp and Steve Spurrier, who might not have done as good a job. And I think what you're getting, at least from the initial impressions of Shane Beamer and his new coaching staff, is that they understand maybe how to balance that a little bit better than the prior two head coaches, or you could probably go down the list of those things. I think having been in the state and done it as a recruiting coordinator before gives Shane Beamer a bit of an advantage there. How much that matters on the field, it will remain to be seen. A lot of that, I think, comes down to luck and how good of players end up cycling through the state. We clearly saw that at its peak back the first time that Shane Beamer was in town, in Steve Spurrier's era, and the Alshon Jeffries and the Marcus Lattimores and Jadeveon Clowney eventually. We'll see how it goes in the next several years, if any kind of big-time names and prospects develop and the Gamecocks can take advantage of any of those relationships that are already formed and continue to evolve under the new coaching staff. 803-404-6100 is the number into the program. Love for you to be a part of the show, however you would like to do it. You can call or text that number. You can check us out on Facebook and YouTube Live, Twitter as well. The video stream up and rolling. It's the early game here on 107.5 The Game.
107.5 The Game.
Clear.
Game is on. Everywhere. On the air. Online. On your phone or tablet.
Oh, and now's the time we have the witty thing. Oh. Yes.
Out by your own pool. But if your pool is dirty, that's not a lot of fun. If you have a hard time maintaining it, if you don't have time to maintain it, I mean, let's be honest, a lot of you have pretty important jobs. You've got stuff you've got to do. You got kids. You got to travel. You got to go to baseball. You got soccer. You got gymnastics. You don't have time to go out in the backyard and start fiddling with your pool, making sure the chemicals are correct, that the pool is clean, so that when you do have free time, you can go do a cannonball into it. No, you need a professional. Let someone handle it for you. That way, when you're ready to relax, the pool is maintained, it's clean, it's ready to jump into. That's why you need to give Corley Pool Solutions a call today. 803-445-8109. With 20 plus years of experience in the pool cleaning industry, Tracy Corley does a fantastic job, and that pool will be ready each and every time you and the family are ready to go out back and just dive right on in. Have a cookout, have the neighbors over. Most importantly, it'll be ready when you're ready to relax. Give them a call today, 803-445-8109. They can do it flat rate pricing, including all the chemicals. Maintain that pool for you. That way, when you're ready to hop in this summer, it's ready to go. Corley Pool Solutions, 803-445-8109.
From the Shepherd's Glass Traffic Center, Shepherd's Glass, a true
So if you're just joining us, I'm guessing like Twig here. Bill's got internet issues this morning. That's why you're not seeing him. They were talking a little DeChambeau and Koepka earlier. Who's your pick, Steven? Who you got in the British Show? Trying to look at the odds right now. I'm guessing Rahm is the favorite. Yep, 7-1. DeChambeau. Next, Dustin Johnson. Third. McIlroy, Schauffele, Koepka. And Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, all 20-1 or better odds. Louis Oosthuizen in next at 30-1. Hard to believe Shane Lowry is the defending champ in this thing since they didn't have it last year. Saw a video of Scotty Scheffler hitting a stinger the other day on social media. So in my head, I think he's going to win now. That's how impressionable I am. Victor Hovland, I like 40-1 guy along with Scheffler. Paul Casey, know he's going to be there. Feel like Lee Westwood, be a good story for sure. He was up there in the odds, 35-1. I love that it'll be on while we're doing the show tomorrow for sure. And Friday, obviously. It's weird not being able to talk to Bill here in the breaks.
Is that a good weird or a bad weird?
Sure is quiet.
I feel like there's a little less, ADD-ish kind of stuff going on, the hopping down and moving and,
Right.
Not that that's a bad thing.
Well, I'm wondering if the sun's coming up on Lake Murray at all today.
Y'all
are missing out on that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know whether the sun is going to come up or not, basically.
Come back with Annie. Come on, hit us up. Just go a cappella.
Okay, you rock with that. Let me listen. Mm-hmm. I was trying to think, is there a song that Bill absolutely detests?
No, he's not that guy. He's the guy that likes
Everything, yeah.
songs that most people detest.
Good point. Can't play anything that would get him dancing because we would miss out on that optic.
Right, he has toned that down now that I think about it. Maybe it's because we're not in studio anymore. And he feels a little, he just doesn't show off as much sitting by himself in his house than he used to.
Yeah, that stops him. Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's the video stream that live forever.
I still have a video from one of the first few months that we were doing the show where he was kind of doing this little dance move thing or something. He looks like a little hamster doing a dance, Still have that to, threaten him with. ...2012 Outback Bowl. Old-timey clip.
Mm-hmm.
The Gamecocks have it. The Gamecocks take it over. Tony just burst through, ripped the helmet off the tailback, and took it away. Took it away. Don't do us like that. Don't do us. Clowney just took it over. Right through. That's his favorite play, Tommy. You know it. He took the inside route, made the hit, and then jumped on the football. Boom! Launched his helmet 6 yards behind him.
That's our old-timey clip of the day, sponsored by Old Timey Meat Market.
Never even heard that call before.
South Congaree and St. Andrews Road in Irma.
Stay with Tommy. He'll be up today.
Heard the Tirico call on the ESPN broadcast all the time.
Okay. And I'm keeping it in queue just during the breaks.
Well, let's see if we can pop Bill back in here. Bill live.
Hey guys, are up.
This time next week, halfway at SEC Media Days. Kicks off Monday in Birmingham, Shane Beamer in South Carolina, one of the first programs up, and will conclude on Thursday, the annual
day event. Now back in Birmingham. Bill will not be making the trip this year. Our Heath Klein is planning on being there and making sure that we're not missing anything over at SEC Media Days. And it seems to always be a slightly different feel, right, Bill? Very rarely at SEC Media Days do you get the exact same 14 coaches in and a similar storyline as the year before. There's always something that is different, but I feel like this year is going to be as different and, I don't know, maybe newsworthy might be the best way to put it, SEC Media Days as we've had in recent memory, just coming off. I'm not even talking about the name, image, likeness stuff. That will be a big part of the discussion for sure. And I guess we got a bit of a preview. Shane Beamer, I think, doing a radio interview up in Charlotte yesterday, I believe it was, talking about the opportunity, the tremendous opportunity that Gamecock football players have in Columbia specifically, and how they will certainly be addressing that in recruiting and have already addressed it with their current players and the whole deal. So a bit of a preview of probably how he's going to approach talking about it at SEC Media Days next week. But I guess my point here, Bill, is that what these programs and what we've all gone through in the last year plus with COVID and things being our lives just being so much different, now getting back to a much closer version of what it was pre-pandemic, will be interesting to hear how these coaches have seen things evolve and kind of come full circle back to a program that looks probably a lot more, as we sit here today in the middle of July 2021, that it did in 2019, as opposed to what things were like this time last year.
Well, let's start with this. There's still going to be some protocol. The reason, I'm not going, you and I've discussed this, and that Heath's going, is there's still some protocols in place, and it's not going to be a typical SEC Media Day. Only 2 players are going next week. Actually, I don't even think, unless Shane said it yesterday and I just flat skipped over it, I don't think he's announced who he's taking with him yet. But we don't know if there'll be Radio Row type interviews. There's a lot of things that the SEC is still doing that it just doesn't make it convenient this year, but understandably. So I am excited to go back to wherever they have it. They haven't announced where it's going to be in 2022. It was actually supposed to be in Nashville this year, which, Tim, I was very excited about because how hard I work.
Because
right
the specific press conference setup, I think, was going to be ideal for you. I think is why you're a big fan of going to Nashville.
We're going to have a good time. But I say all that about it being different because this is an SEC Media Day that I would really like to go to. Number one, I say really like to go to if it was a normal situation. It's not normal again this year, but it should be back to normal next year. But I mean, I still haven't been able to go hear Mike Leach speak in person. And I think that's worth the price of admission right there. But I think that being able to hear not just Shane Beamer continue what has been, I think, a very good 7 months of getting South Carolina fans. Let's start with this: a very good seven months of getting South Carolina fans kind of re-energized for the program. Because Tim, you followed the program for a long time. You and I are very similar in that manner. We've been around this program in some shape or form for a long time. And I don't know if I guess maybe at the end of the Brad Scott tenure, it was as low as it was following the Kentucky game, or I don't know. I don't know what the exact low point of last year was. Maybe it was the Texas A&M game, and then the Ole Miss game was the following week. But do you remember a time that the program was, the fans were as down in the dumps, were as negative, where things were as bad as they were around that time last year? Do you remember a period in the last 20 or 30 years where it's been like that?
Yeah, the 21 game losing streak. It's easy for us to kind of whitewash it because it was a massive turnaround the next year in 2000, right? But losing 21 games in a row and having a Hall of Fame head coach come in Lou Holtz and go 0-11. You got to remember, back at that time, you had no idea it was going to turn around. There was some optimism for sure.
Yeah.
And I get that. I mean, there's optimism right now for Shane Beamer. We don't know what's going to come. There was a different type of optimism with Lou Holtz because of his pedigree. But, man, 21 losses in a row is 21 losses in a row.
Yeah, I think still with Holtz, because of his pedigree, people believe that good things could come or were coming. But I'm with you. But I say that because, number one, with Shane next week, next Monday, you're going to continue to hear those positive messages, the positive vibes, and that's what Shane is selling right now for this program. And again, it's not just that he's having to sell it to recruits. He's having to sell it to his own fan base, who's been beaten down over the last 22 football games.
But even more than that, Bill, I just want to step in at this point. I hear what you're saying right there, but I think it comes across as, at least when I hear someone selling me something, as a bit inauthentic. I think it's very important, too, that it's also who Shane Beamer is, like being a positive guy, as opposed to Will Muschamp. Muschamp's not. He's just not a sunny, positive guy, right? He's more that grizzled X's and O's, intense type personality. And I think that's another reason why it didn't work as well as it did when the losses started mounting up, because his personality isn't one that handles that well, as opposed to a Dabo Swinney-like personality where you shake it off and you say, no, I get that this is happening, but by my force of will, we're going to focus on this and build all this up. And I think Shane Beamer, it's difficult to put into words, but I think anyone who listens and watches him speak gets that feeling that, no, this isn't just a sales job. This is who this guy is, and it seems to be a good fit at this time. We got no idea how it's going to work out on the field results-wise, but I think that comes across and will continue to come across here as the Gamecock Club appearances roll on here this month, and then SEC Media Days next week, and the whole deal. I just wanted to make that point, as opposed to, like, Mike Leach isn't that guy who's just a positive guy, right? But his track record's pretty darn good, and the whole thing. I just think personalities do matter in these instances, and Lou Holtz was kind of that guy as well, who could do the magic tricks and say, hey, I know I just lost 11 games in a row, but guess what? Good things are coming. And I do think Gamecock fans did believe in that to some degree back then. And I'm not sure how much Muschamp has made that go away or kind of made that disappear for a lot of Gamecock fans. I'm guessing here in the coming weeks, they might be able to rediscover it, maybe even more so than they thought they could.
Internet's back. I'm working on that.
Oh, big break.
Thank you. No, but to your point, I agree with what you're saying. And again, all I'm saying is trying to sell. Okay, I see what you're saying. Don't use the word sell, but again, talking about the positive vibes, keeping everybody positive after what's transpired. And again, I'll take it a step further back, 23 games when you include the Belk Bowl. But with all that being said, I think hearing that, and then look, you're right, hearing what Shane says, and I think where you initially started the conversation, hearing what Shane says about name, image, likeness, and where he stands on that, and what's going on with the football team, and how they're going to go about handling that this year. So there's a lot of interesting things that will come out in this particular SEC Media Day, and it should be very entertaining to hear Shane and as well as all the other coaches and how they're going to handle it and what they're going to do moving forward. And then just hearing the guys get back into rhythm with talking about a regular schedule, not the weird, odd practices they had to have last year, the way they had to conduct meetings with their own team, the way they had to kind of quarantine certain position groups so that if one guy got sick, you didn't have the contact tracing. There's a lot of things that I think went into that last year that we all know about, that still behind the scenes we're unfamiliar with what exactly those guys went through. And so I think it'll be interesting to hear several different points of view there from coaches, both on the name, image, likeness, but also just getting back into regular rhythm. Interested in hearing your opinion as well. 803-404-6100.
The Cool Care Heating and Air text line, the Cocky Codger weighing in, says, I certainly remember that 21-game losing streak, but last year was worse. I think the main reason why is that during that losing streak back in 2099, he's talking about, Carolina could have or should have won a number of those games, and Clemson was struggling too then. So, yeah, last year was worse. Just my opinion. Humble as always from the Cocky Codger. Again, 803-404-6100 if you would like to call or text to join the show. We kick off the second half of it next. It's the early game here on 107.5 The Game.
It's a new year.
They're hungry. They're driven.
In a new attitude.
I want guys that want to be here, not just going out there to hire some guy that has a famous last name.
It's not some retreads. We're a bunch of guys that I think are ready to prove to people that we can do some special things here.
New.
Pick it up and put it in the trash. It was a big day for me yesterday with the 1-year-old. Pick that up and put it in the trash, and it worked. It was fantastic. It was like the disintegrating yogurt bites on the floors that are always all around my house these days. Why would I bring this up? Why am I boring you with my trials and tribulations with a 1-year-old these days? Well, I wanted to point out my appreciation for Zero Res. Carpet and air duct cleaning. Zero Res has been out to my house a couple of times and cleaned my carpets, cleaned an area rug for me, freshened up the tiles in the kitchen and the bathroom, done a great job, given us great results. But I especially appreciate it these days with the 1-year-old and around mealtime because things on the floors it goes haywire real quick. And it reminds me what a great job Zero Res has done. Also, why I specifically appreciate them as opposed to some other carpet cleaning companies, because Zero Res, no harsh chemicals involved in their patented Howard water cleaning system. You can find out all the details there at ZeroResColumbia.com, where you can book your appointment today. We got a great deal for you as well. 3 rooms of carpet cleaned, only $119 plus a free hallway when you mention me, Tim Hill. Book that appointment right now at ZeroResColumbia.com or call them at 803-262-4020. If you need a backup plan, I guess you could hire me and my 1-year-old to go pick stuff up off your carpets, but I don't recommend that at all. And that's Zero Res. Spell it backwards or forwards. It's the right way to clean. Oh, the brightness is back. It's good to see the internet's back. See if we can get Bill in the picture. Oh, there he is. Let's see. Attaboy, Bill. Yeah, still flashing it out.
Yep. Let's see if we can get that set up.
Once you sit down, we're good.
Where's this going?
Boom.
Well, yeah. We gotta get the right angle here. All right, take me off for a minute there while I get reset back up here.
Gotcha. Go get your makeup on.
Oh.
He's there. Looks like he's getting it, Jen. Don't worry.
Let's see if I move. No.
Yeah, you're good. When you sit there, it's fine. When you move, it's not.
I just have to sit right here the entire time.
Yay.
Yeah.
When it starts flashing, when you move, I'll take it off. Don't worry. Then we'll pop you back up when your ADD settles down and you get back in the show.
Now this, just because I'm definitely off to the side, this does look very witness protection-y.
Yes, it does. We can get the voice altered. That'd be all right.
Yeah, Craig, that's a good question. You would think from a on paper standpoint, those would be the 2 guys that Beamer takes with him, but I feel like traditionally it's much more about who the coach can trust conveying the message as opposed to who the actual leaders are or the best players are.
Well, the question is are they? I know they've named Luke Doty the starter, but are they dead set on Luke Doty?
Right.
And so that's the thing. If you take him, I feel like you're basically saying, yes, he is the starter. There's no competition in the fall. I mean, I know you can always change quarterbacks, but it just seems like a bad way to do it, to take a guy that you're not going to end up naming your starter.
Oh, yeah, sure. Bad look.
I mean, that's why maybe you do take Ngbare and Kevin Harris.
Yeah, but Harris just doesn't like to talk at all. So maybe that's another reason you take him. I'm saying Doty is a really good talker.
What about Nick Muse?
Yeah, that'll be who it is. It'll be Muse offensively, and then defensively, I'm trying to think who is a really good talker that I've heard before.
Is Ngbare? I can't remember hearing Ngbare talk, but
Craig, you're not taking a dude who's never played a college snap. That doesn't
Yeah.
make sense. I mean, I understand what you're saying as far as the best players. That's just never how this thing works. And Anthony is thrilled to have you back, though.
I'm thrilled to be back. I was just
Easy,
settling into the chair in front of me so that I could look at the lake. Yeah, it was strange. All that, so everything went down like at the same time. Like I looked at the computer froze.
Right.
I couldn't hear you, and my TV was spinning because I'm using internet for that. So I mean, it's like everything just completely blacked out. But we've got these little Verizon sticks that we use. I'm not sure why that went out.
Right.
But it was a Spectrum outage here in the area.
Huh, crazy. So the other guy on the defensive line is Jabari Ellis. I'm guessing they take Jabari Ellis and Nick Muse. That would be where I'd put my money.
I think it's Ngbare and Muse. Ngbare and Muse. Twig, your guy is on. Lee Westwood is, I guess, doing his news conference right now.
Heading back in. You guys are up.
Now, this is a good July conversation. Chandler, poll question. What do you want to see as Shane Beamer's first play call at South Carolina? One, a deep pass like Steve Spurrier. Number 2, a run up the gut with Kevin Harris. Number 3, trick play. I would throw in number 4 there. A short pass that goes a lot laterally to get Luke Doty a completion. And that would go much more with Joe Brady type offense that I feel like Marcus Satterfield is trying to install with Gamecock football. Bill, what do you think? You got anything to add to the list, to the multiple choice there of first play of the Shane Beamer era on offense?
Well, the easy choice is just air it out. Just send I don't know who send, send Jalen Brooks just down the field and see how far Doty can throw it. Maybe the smart play though with Luke Doty. I would have, because just being a smart coach, I think what you try to do is maybe almost have a designed quarterback run just to let him get hit once. Get into the rhythm of the game. Like, because I got a feeling. I mean, I think we all agree. Clemson opens in Charlotte, but then the following week they'll be home. And Memorial Stadium, even though I think they play Furman in week 2, the chance for all of us to get back in the stadium, to watch our favorite team, to enjoy our favorite traditions, to enjoy tailgating, everything. I realize it's Eastern Illinois, but I mean, you're thinking it's going to be 75,000. I think the full attendance now is 77. It's a September day in South Carolina, so it's going to be 3 million degrees with 100% humidity. But don't you agree? Like, the place is going to be electric. It's going to be absolutely electric, and that's going to feed over to the players as well. Just let them go out there. Luke Doty's a runner. He's a physical kid. Let him take one shot, get him kind of out on the perimeter. Hopefully he doesn't get crushed. But let him get out there and kind of get into the rhythm of the game, and then come back instead of just turning around and handing it to Kevin Harris.
Raphael says first play, wishbone, triple option, Harris, Lloyd, and White in the backfield. That would be interesting for sure. It's fun to think about, Bill, and as you're just talking about the atmosphere, you got to stress that it's a night game, and night games at Williams-Brice do have a different atmosphere, especially early on in the season when you're not frying completely underneath a burning sun, especially as a noon game would be. To me, I don't know. I just feel like just the fact that this is the way the Shane Beamer era is starting. I will take away, I think, my lasting image of Will Muschamp's tenure is a noon game in Williams-Brice where things just didn't necessarily go right for the Gamecocks. Like the season opener against Coastal Carolina several years ago, where DJ Wanham goes down, for instance. Like the game went fine for Carolina, but Wanham was injured and never quite got back to being 100% healthy that entire season, which was a big part of the problem several years ago for Gamecock football. And that just was Will Muschamp's tenure to me. Was there were some good things. And again, that's why I like this article from Athletic from yesterday talking about recruiting in the state of South Carolina, because you didn't get a completely black or white takeaway and consensus from all of those anonymous high school coaches. You got some that said Will Muschamp was a really good recruit and they had a great relationship with him. And you had others that said, yeah, I didn't have a good feeling from him and didn't see him enough. And that whole operation just didn't work well from my perspective. I mean, and that's what I feel that's a true representation, I feel like, or an accurate one might be the best way to put it, of how most programs are perceived across an entire state, right? There are some programs that you just have good relationships with, and there are others that, for whatever different reasons, it doesn't work as well with. Interesting to see how Shane Beamer will, first of all, approach that. The approach is interesting, and it seems to be more of, hey, I'm going to do whatever I can to be loyal to you guys, but then how any kind of complications get handled, because there are always complications within a state the size of ours and through the recruiting process, where sometimes there are grades involved, sometimes there are promises made not backed up on, at least hurt feelings on one side or the other, and then how do you deal with that? And it seems to me, with his people skills, that Shane Beamer has the ability, is set up to handle that as well as possible at this point, because the challenge is massive. We've talked about it multiple times, Bill, the situation he's stepping into at this time for Gamecock football. I think the most recent wave of commits into the program and getting some positive momentum going is important on that front for sure.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a situation where, yeah, you're right. It's tough right now, and he's going to have to fight through some things. I think when you talk about trying to, there's so much that goes into it. I remember a story about Alshon Jeffrey, and obviously we all know how his recruitment went, and he didn't come in and make what I would say was an instant impact right off the bat. I think in the first 6 games, it took a few games. I think people forget that. And there's a story that his high school coach called up the coaching staff, was not happy that his guy was not playing, that he should have been on the field, that this is what they talked about in recruiting. And one of the coaches said, well, here's the situation. He's not really doing what he needs to do in practice. And apparently his high school coach called Alshon. I think had a pep talk with him is the best way to describe it. And they said that from that point on, Alshon was an entirely different player. And we obviously saw what he became. There's part of that. You mentioned it. There's part of that when you bring a player into your program that's an in-state kid. And you're right, you go through the recruiting process and you make promises and you say, well, hey, we're going to do this with you, and here's how we're going to use you. This is what's going to happen. And then they get to campus and things aren't, rosy recruiting the way it was. There's work involved in weightlifting. And when those guys don't live up and do what they're supposed to do, well, the head coach doesn't know. He's probably going to be calling usually he's going to probably call his player and say, hey, why aren't they playing you? And so, yeah, there's a lot of things you have to balance there when it comes to handling in-state, particularly in-state coaches and the relationships you have with them. And again, some of it is as simple as making sure they feel welcome to come by a practice and watch you. Some of it is making sure they feel comfortable picking up the phone and being able to call you and say, hey, we like that scheme you ran last Saturday in that game. How exactly did you go about doing that? And where did you place your linebacker? What exactly was the nub side? It's small things like that where you have to make coaches feel comfortable. And I'll admit, in talking with people around here, coaches that I still know that are at the high school level, you mentioned that Dabo Sweeney and his staff have gone out of their way to make high school coaches in this state feel comfortable just randomly showing up on the campus, feeling welcomed, feeling like they can call a coach at any time of the day and say, hey, we liked how you utilized this guy last week. How did how did you scheme that up? What exactly did you do that made that a good play? And those coaches feel comfortable with Clemson coaches, and it's going to be the same thing that Shane Beamer is trying to promote now with South Carolina.
Plenty more to come. It's the early game on 107.5.
Oh, let me tell you about my good friends at Love Chevrolet, I-26 in Harbison between Lowe's and Frankie's Fun Park. Now is the time of the year you want to get over there and check out the great selection, the large selection of Chevrolets that they've got on the lot. 14 acres to be exact. That's the largest selection anywhere in the Midlands. So if you're looking for a car or truck, you need to go visit my good friends at Love Chevrolet. Why? Because they've got the $1,000 low price guarantee. It means you can shop anywhere else here. You can take their deal back to the folks at Love Chevrolet, and they'll top it. If they don't, they'll write a check for $1,000. That's why it's called the $1,000 low price guarantee. On top of that, you've heard me talk about the selection, but most importantly is, again, that sales staff. You always want to go somewhere where you feel welcome, where you feel comfortable, where you're not pressured, and the great salespeople at Love Chevrolet will do exactly that. They'll make you feel comfortable. They'll make you feel welcome. They've got cookies in the lobby. I could go over there and just sit there and have cookies and sit in the massage chair. So you can actually go get a cookie, sit in a little massage chair, and then when you're ready, one of those great sales members will walk you around. They'll tell you how a car or truck benefits you on your daily commute. Not just those great vacations you're expecting to take in it, but how that car or truck will get you from point A to point B and why it's perfect for your lifestyle. Go visit Love Chevrolet, I-26 in Harbison between Lowe's and Frankie's Fun Park, or on the web, lovechevy.com. Get out to Love Chevrolet and find new roads.
That's a good looking picture you got behind you.
It is a pretty one.
You getting out there at all today?
I don't know what we're going to do today. I don't know. I need to get to the other office for a little while and do some stuff and see what the kids want to do. We might go jump off the dock. I don't know if we'll go out on the boat. It depends on what the weather's going to do. We grilled some fish last night. Oh, there you go. We did some snapper and some salmon.
How'd it turn out?
It was all right. It was all right. It could have been the snapper. It was the first time I've ever grilled snapper, and it was thicker. It was almost like a hump of meat, if that makes sense. Like it was, like salmon is typically just straightforward and it's thinner. So I know how to cook salmon really well, and I've got a good time on it. But with the snapper, I feel like I had it underdone and then put it back on. I had it underdone when the salmon was done. And so I left the salmon on, put the snapper back on, and I kind of overcooked the salmon a little bit because I was trying to mess with the heat. I finally took the salmon off before the snapper was done, and it was good. I ate all of it. Had that with quinoa and a salad.
Strong.
Couldn't complain.
Never would have thought that frozen crab cakes would be any good, but they are.
All in how you cook them.
Oh, my wife just chucked them in the old toaster oven. They turned out great.
Really? Yeah.
Nice. Frozen coconut shrimp is good too. Pop them in the air fryer.
Nice.
Not bad.
Now, is that something that you get from Sam's or Costco, or are you just talking about the local grocery store?
For the crab cakes?
Well, either both. The coconut shrimp, because I feel like if you go to, even though you can find like the C-Pack or whatever.
That's the brand.
Is it?
For that.
We just do I think they're relatively small packs at the local grocery store with the crab cakes. I think they might come in a pack of 4, maybe.
Pack of 4. The kids eat them, or is that a you and the wife thing? No,
yeah. We don't even try. What did they go with yesterday? Meatballs.
There you go. Can't go wrong with that.
Sun is a problem this morning.
Okay. I try to get us to go in to come back out.
Yeah, if you want to, you just keep the break going. That's the easiest way to do it.
We can go back in here and then you guys take like a minute. Does that work for you?
Sure, just count us down.
Yep.
Can.
Yeah, about 45 seconds maybe. Guys are up.
So is it changed? That's the problem, Bill. Just because it wasn't the traditional uniforms, could any uniform? Were we gonna like any uniform last night at the Major League Baseball All-Star Game that wasn't that we were expecting?
No.
30.
No. The answer is no.
Just making sure. But why are you trying to get tricky, man? I don't understand. Are you trying to sell stuff? Are they trying to sell those new All-Star uniforms? Is that the deal?
That was probably the deal. Auction them.
Haven't we figured that out, man? It doesn't work. Come on, baseballs. Stop screwing it up.
Hi.
We'll try not to screw up hour number 3. It's coming up next.
Jay Phillips talking integrated.
All right.
The former Carolina catcher and now with the Detroit Tigers, but home is still Columbia. Integrated has set you
$400 a pop? Are you kidding me, Jesse?
I would have to say just
That is ridiculous.
No way. That's nuts.
Surely it's $40 and you missed a decimal.
I got a feeling it's 400.
I wouldn't pay that for just my own team.
That's nuts.
$400 is what Heath said. Oh,
Well, then that's got to be accurate.
All right. I'll get some more coffee here in a second. All right. We'll call Odie around 8:20 and do that in the
Now,
second
are we
segment.
going to call Garfield too?
Nice. So I can spell it on the video stream, Otis, right?
Yeah, I'd probably go Otis. Yeah. I'd probably go Otis.
We'll do a little name, image, likeness stuff with him as well as
yeah, because obviously Aaron played at South Carolina, and then his daughter played at played volleyball at Charleston. So he's got some opinions on it. We talked about it yesterday.
Gotcha.
So we can get that going. All right, let's see if I step away, will I blind y'all?
Yep.
Yeah, I'll pop it out.
All
I'll
right.
just pop it back on when you get there. What about the strobing effect there? The
Seriously.
feeding that sun. Jim, will you remind me to talk to Bill about a golf deal when we get done with the live stream?
Okay.
If you can, thank you. This Darian Stewart's having a golf tournament, I think on this Monday, with a bunch of football players expected to come into town, and we're trying to figure out how we might be able to get involved into that. They'll give
fun.
on it. There's an article on GamecockCentral.com if you guys want to check out more information there. It's going to be at Cobblestone. And I guess he's got a foundation and raise money to help. I don't know exactly. I think he's got the foundation set up in a couple of different cities. So I'm not sure exactly where the money's going. But it seems like a good cause. Darian Stewart. Always remember Spurrier. Old D-Stu.
I love that though.
that's pretty cool.
Stewart Standouts Foundation.
Mm-hmm. Just retweeting it now. A side-by-side video screenshot of home runs from Vladimir Guerrero and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hitting home runs in the All-Star game.
Oh, wow.
Let's test Bill. 2 other father-son duos have hit home runs in All-Star games. You want to guess the 2?
I would guess Griffey Sr. and Griffey Jr.
Yep, I would guess that's the one you get. I don't know if you'll get the other one. Warren Witt.
Father-son home run.
In the All-Star.
Is it Rick? Is it Reed? Like, is the son recent, or am I going to have to go back into the early 2000s and the 90s?
Yep, that's where you need to go.
No, I'm not getting that one. Who is it?
Barry and Bobby Bonds.
Oh,
we could have let you guys
a
play
lot
along.
easier than it should have been.
My fault. Yeah, I don't even know if I know another father-son duo. Maybe Craig Biggio and his son, but I don't think his son's been an all-star. I would have guessed probably Dante Bichette and maybe Bo Bichette. I saw was at the all-star game at least last night. But I don't think, obviously, they both haven't hit a home run. And I would have never thought that Bobby Bonds hit a home run in the all-star game.
Mm-mm.
Rooster P is saying good morning to you on the text line, Jen. Smooth talking Jen Jensen is how he puts it.
Ah. Forgot to log in. Yo, Rooster P. Funny. Nobody in my family thinks I'm smooth talking.
Well, it would be weird if your family only knew you as Jen Jensen,
True.
show producer.
This is very true.
Oh, speaking of that, my nephew yesterday apparently shot like 66 or something in Wake Forest golf camp.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
So there is golf talent in your family. It's just not with you.
Oh, definitely not with me. I think he's overcoming the talent deficiency somehow.
All right, we had to readjust that just for now. Where the sun is located was going to be a problem.
All right. Hour number 3. Fully interneted. Bill's back in the old spot. Back in his...
You know what, Bill, what you need is to get a big mirror behind you, and that way the light reflects.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm guessing that would have the same light issues.
Right.
Would seem to.
But it was angled right.
Yeah. That would be super... That would just mess with my mind that I'm seeing a wall and a lake at the same...
Right.
in your kitchen.
All right.
All right, you guys are up.
Hey, Open Wednesday's going well. Thanks for joining us for hour number 3 here in the middle of July, just ahead of SEC Media Days, which will kick off on Monday. Plenty of college football preview to discuss. We've got a British Open preview to get to as well. Going to give you details about an opportunity to go see Shane Beamer address the Lexington County Gamecock Club, and a great article out from The Athletic yesterday about recruiting in the state of South Carolina and the perceptions of high school coaches around the state of both the University of South Carolina and their efforts, Clemson, and smaller schools around the state. And Bill, I thought one thing that stuck out to me was Virginia Tech named pretty consistently as the best school outside the state of South Carolina that recruits in the state of South Carolina. I didn't see that coming, especially with, I don't know if turmoil is the right way to put it, but everything we kind of heard out of Blacksburg in the Justin Fuente era. I wasn't expecting to hear that from the high school coaches, but Virginia Tech, a pretty popular choice. I saw that East Carolina, at least recently, seems to be doing a good job. Appalachian State also earning high praise, I think, for the job that they do recruiting the state of South Carolina. What were your impressions, being the resident recruiting nerd on the show and having followed the industry much closer than most of us in the last several years?
Well, I think the Virginia Tech thing, they have continued to recruit the state pretty well post Frank Beamer, but you credit that a lot to Frank Beamer and the way that, Frank having been at the Citadel, being familiar with the state. I mean, again, Shane considers this more of his home state than the state of Virginia, where his father coached for a long time. That's why for him, this was kind of a dream job. This is to him where he was born in Charleston and is what he considers more of his home state. So obviously Frank made a point to recruit the state. Frank Beamer made a point to recruit the state hard when he was at Virginia Tech. That carried over, obviously, because what was he there, 25 years, 26 years? They always did a good job. Shane kept that tradition there when he was at Virginia Tech with his father and would come down and try and get into the state. So I can see that with Virginia Tech, and I think some of it's carryover. Now, I wonder for older coaches how they would compare the Frank Beamer Virginia Tech recruiting philosophy of coming to South Carolina versus what Justin Fuente has done. That'd be a good question that I'd kind of like to hear. But yeah, I think that's where that comes from, and that's where you see Shane Beamer once again, connections that have been built over time through his dad, through his experience at Virginia Tech, that he's able to come back and now being the head coach at the University of South Carolina, able to try and really get those connections to work in the Gamecocks' favor.
Well, also it's flipped too, because we've seen this new Gamecock coaching staff put an emphasis on going up I-95 back towards Virginia and the Washington, D.C. area, and already land some guys and have inroads there as well, because the two programs are pretty similar, Virginia Tech and South Carolina, in that they have to recruit their state, but that's not going to be enough. And they have to go around the surrounding areas and battle other programs for guys. And a lot of times, Bill, you're going to be able to land a 3-star guy that other programs have passed on, and you can develop them into really good football players. And that can be the difference between being a top 25 program year in and year out and struggling and not being able to figure out is how those guys develop. And that has been a pretty consistent theme for Gamecock fans coming off the Will Muschamp era, is that there just wasn't enough of that. And a difference between the Muschamp era and the Steve Spurrier era, I think that's a bit overblown, because I think there has been some development. I think you go to one position that we were talking a lot about yesterday with that Pro Football Focus release of their top 130 quarterbacks, or ranking the quarterback at every single FBS program 1 through 130, and the quarterback play was just so poor in the Will Muschamp era. It was really difficult to overcome, I think. And we've seen development of certain players and guys go on to the NFL, J.C. Horn, Javon Kinlaw, and amongst many others in the last several years. It was just, for whatever reason, if you play quarterback for Will Muschamp, you're going to struggle. It's just that simple. And I think Gamecock fans really interested to see if that trend will now break, because Marcus Satterfield and his tutelage with Joe Brady and his time in the NFL and what he's done with quarterbacks, and Shane Beamer coming from Oklahoma, where clearly that program has had amazing quarterbacks in the last several years. What kind of effect will that coaching have? And Luke Doty's pedigree, pretty good coming out of high school. You mentioned it, a bit of a curious evaluation, I think, maybe on him because of how highly he was thought of coming out of high school. But with the athleticism also carrying over to wide receiver and splitting some time, maybe that's the obvious explanation for the lack of projecting Luke Doty high on that, basically the power rankings 1 through 130 from Pro Football Focus as we sit here today.
Yeah, it's extremely interesting to see what Marcus Satterfield is as a coordinator, what he is as a quarterback's coach, to see what Luke Doty is after a full offseason, a true full offseason. a full spring practice, a full summer where he can actually do the things that that you're supposed to do, where you can go and have throwing sessions with your wide receivers, where you can get an actual workout in with Luke Day. I think that's what I'm kind of fascinated to see, because too often fans get caught up in the Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence mindset of, man, these kids as true freshmen, they've got to come in and make an immediate impact. They've got to come in, and if they're not making an immediate impact, they're a bust. And Luke Doty was highly thought of, but he needed time to develop the Dan Mullen philosophy, right? I think you've talked about it before. Dan Mullen doesn't want to throw quarterbacks into the fire early on. He wants to bring them along slowly. That's what he's done with Emory Jones.
But it's not even a personal preference kind of thing. He said it's not fair. It's unfair to put a guy out on the field who's not ready. And clearly we've seen multiple guys go in from the South Carolina standpoint. Brandon McElwain is the one that pops out to me, especially. Lorenzo Nunez, I guess before him, guys who just weren't ready. And we've seen the results lately.
Yeah, and so it's I mean, it's true. I'm trying to think what Connor Mitch exactly was before he started the North Carolina game. I believe.
I think redshirt sophomore. I believe that year.
Okay, so
I
I mean,
right
think about that. That's 3 years in the program, and
right.
Look, he wasn't exactly lighting the world on fire, but he gets hurt in game number 2, had that nasty hip injury, and that kind of obviously started the complete downfall. Who knows what happens if he's allowed to develop or go through those seasons, continue to take those reps. I'm trying to remember when exactly he got hurt in that Kentucky game, but it's been a while. I mean, you're right. How many true freshmen have now started a football game for South Carolina the last? Well, since during Muschamp's tenure, it was McElwain, Bentley, Polinsky, Luke Doty.
And you could go the year before that, and Lorenzo Nunez, right?
Throw that 5. I mean, so since
5 years in a row.
Since 2015, yeah, is that right? 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 26. 5 of the last 6 years, a true freshman has started a football game for the University of South Carolina. Nobody ever says that out loud. And as I say that out loud, that's a wild statistic, isn't it?
Yeah. I think if you looked at programs across the country, but that's the thing also, right? Especially as we sit here in the state of South Carolina, having seen Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence, who are kind of the unicorns, but they're not the only ones. Other freshmen have had success to a much larger degree, but it's the combination, I feel like, right, of Will Muschamp's track record with lack of success at quarterbacks, and then throwing guys out there early on and in their college career. Man, it's been a recipe for disaster. It's just that simple. And then you throw in injuries and everything else that has happened from the South Carolina standpoint, and you get where we sit today. But yeah, that stat particularly is pretty alarming, I think. And if you're Colton Gauthier, I'm guessing you might want to familiarize yourself with that stat, right? You might want to be a little bit more ready than you can when you're hearing all the projections and the whole thing, and you're not necessarily projected to play. I think as a true freshman, you can convince yourself that it's just not going to happen this year, or maybe there's a lack of focus sometimes in preparation. Yeah, I'm guessing the coaching staff should probably mention that as well. Hey, this has happened. You better be ready. We need you to be ready, because that's that. I wonder if there's a run in school history that's like that. I'm guessing there's not, especially with the value that previous coaches have placed on experience. Steve Spurrier with Dylan Thompson, even as talented as he was, and he got on the field, sophomore year, I think, that first start against East Carolina. But as a true freshman, man, that is so early to get a quarterback on the football field and asking a ton. And it's just what South Carolina football has been recently.
Yeah, that's a good question. You say a run in school history. I'd say a run for major programs across college football to start 5 true freshmen over a 6-year period. I mean, that's almost like a Cleveland Browns type, a pre-Baker Mayfield Cleveland Browns type quarterback type stat.
For sure.
So yeah, there's got to be, and there's got to be some continuity there at the position. I think maybe that's why people were most upset at the Helinski deal last year, because with Jake Bentley, you at least had a guy there that was consistent, obviously, from his true freshman year through his senior year, which now that as I'm doing this in my head, that makes it even crazier that you had a guy start essentially, he missed one start during his career. The Missouri game, Scarnecchia came in. So just kind of a weird, huh?
Not counting the rest of the games in his last season after starting that opener. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Because it was Jake Bentley so long at that position and as the face of the program, I think it's easy to lose sight of how many true freshmen have started games for South Carolina at the quarterback position through the years. No doubt. We'll talk about that as well as a multitude of other things. We've got a special guest joining us on the Love Chevy phone lines. I know him as Aaron Rawls' dad. I'm guessing that's not how Otis Rawls introduces himself, but with the Lexington County Gamecock Club, Shane Beamer going to be speaking at one of their events coming up soon. So we're going to discuss that. We'll discuss the new name, image, and likeness college sports environment from the father's perspective, a guy who started the national championship game for Carolina back in 2002, and how things might have been different from his standpoint or would have been different in his college career. Love to hear from you as well as we roll on here in hour number 3. 803-404-6100 is the number. It's the early game on 107.5 The Game.
The home of the Gamecocks and new head football coach, Shane Beamer.
I'm a process-driven person, and we're going to get started day one, advancing this program and making it better.
107.5 The Game.
I know it's cliche.
Talking a lot about football this morning. It's got me excited thinking about the opening weekend. Also has me thinking about how hot that opening Saturday is going to be. And when I come home after the game, I better make sure that air conditioner is running good, because you know what? When we're all out there, whether you're in Charlotte for Clemson, Georgia, or whether you're in Williams-Brice for the Gamecocks in Eastern Illinois, you're going to want your air conditioner working real well when you come home. I imagine it's going to be quite humid that day. Go ahead and make the call today. Get AAA Heating and Air out to your house. Make them inspect or have them inspect your air conditioning unit. If there's something wrong with it, AAA Heating and Air has got you taken care of. The first thing they'll do is offer you a $1,500 rebate to take away your old unit. Then they'll work with you. 0% down, 0% financing on a brand new unit. That's why I trust them with my air conditioning unit, because they treat me like a family member. They're going to do the same for you. They're going to make sure that you're comfortable, that you're not strapped for your budget by trying to afford a brand new air conditioning unit. And that's the kind of company you want to work with. AAA Heating and Air. Give them a phone call today. 803-677-1500. Again, 803-677-1500. After all of that, after they've taken care of you, they're going to add something on top of it. A 15-year parts and labor warranty to make sure if there's any issues, they're there to take care of you and your family. AAA Heating and Air. 803-677-1500. Give them a call today. Tell them you heard it here with Bill Gunner on 107.5 The Game.
Shepherd's Glass, a true reflection of quality.
Bill, you remember the date for Lexington County?
Is it 26th?
26th. Thank you.
The 26th. I got the information in case you just want me to start reading it.
Yeah, July 26th, Lexington County Gamecock Club. And then the email address that you sent me will pop up as well.
Sounds like we got an exhilarating show if Sonny's wife is counting how many times you pick up and put down your cup.
what's the highest number, man? You might as well.
How do you say the soccer coach's name? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I think it's Anon actually, but I'll double check. I know they put it out in the first release.
I mean, there are other coaches. Jeff Popple, Frank Martin, Tom Mendoza. He picked up and put his cup down 23 times in a 60-second time period.
Wait. I think that seems extreme.
Seems like we're just pulling numbers out of the air there on that one.
No, Annan is right.
Annan?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I see it when I see it spelled, I say it like I pronounced it the first time, but Annan is right. I need to change it in my brain. Good luck with that.
You want me to take a picture of this and text it to you real quick, just so you got it in front of you?
No, I'll let you take it over.
Okay.
He was joking. More like 10. I think it's probably more like 5. I'm gonna have to see the video on that.
Go back and rewatch the tape later.
Right.
Break it down. See if you fit the run gaps properly. Is the Tour de France still going on?
Apparently, huh?
Apparently so. No, July. So yeah, the last day is July 18th, and today is the 4th. So yeah, okay. I was just going back. It looks like South Carolina. It looks like that Kentucky game when Connor Mitch got hurt.
Second quarter, right?
Second quarter, yeah.
Barry Orth came in, was throwing darts.
Yeah, Perry Orth came in there. Yeah, so it looks like South Carolina was down 17-7 and missed a field goal right after Mitch got hurt. I would also venture they did not have a lot of total offense. Well, Mitch was 4 of 7 for 43 yards. He was. Pharaoh Cooper, Jarrell Adams were on that team. Debo Samuel. That 3-9 team had 3 wide receivers. Had Brandon Wilds played in the NFL a little bit. Think about that. 3-9, and you had Cooper, Adams, and Samuel all in the NFL. Brandon Wilds got a cup of tea.
Yep.
Good to go, Jen?
Looks like it. Smooth talking, Jen.
He's ready. There you guys are up.
Trying to get your head bobbing, feeling good on a Wednesday in the middle of July. Thanks for making us part of your morning routine here on the early game. Happy to roll out to the Love Chevy phone lines right now, joined by Lexington County
Gamecock Clubs. Otis Rawl on the line right now. Wanted to give you a bit of a preview of what's going to be happening on July 26th when Shane Beamer and several other Gamecock coaches going to be holding court at the Traditions Club. And Otis, I know you guys are looking forward to listening to what they have to hear or what they have to say and getting some Gamecock fans all together having a good time.
Well, I know they're talking about this thing being a welcome back tour for Shane and all, but we're kind of looking at it as a back to winning type tour. We're excited about what Shane's doing, what he's done to this point. I think recruiting's going really, really well, and I think it's just a matter of time for us getting back. And what we were wanting to do is give the people of the Midlands a chance to meet Coach Beamer, hear what he's got to say about the upcoming season, and let's see if we can just get excited about Gamecock football and let's go have a winning season this year.
It's the Midlands event brought to you by the Lexington County Gamecock Club. It'll be, again, July 26th. It'll start at 5:30. There's a barbecue buffet that you guys will have. So that's at 6 o'clock. There will be actually other coaches there as well. I know we'll talk about Shane a little bit, but soccer coach Tony Annan, swimming and diving head coach Jeff Popple, Frank Martin will be there, Tom Mendoza. So you guys are going to have a lot going on, a question and answer session, autographs, to which I believe the coaches are okay with since the name, image, likeness is out there, so you can get autographs. So plenty going on there, Mr. Rawl. A lot to get excited about on Monday, July 26th.
Well, it is, and what we hope is to have the same kind of turnout on the 26th that we had when Coach Holtz and Coach Spurrier came here. We held an event very similar to this the year before their preliminary season. We had 500 or 600 people actually come out to Sewell's during that time frame. Of course, we're doing it at the New Traditions Lounge this time. But what we're hoping to, once again, is to have the largest event in South Carolina of Gamecock Club members getting together. And we're anticipating hopefully having 600 people there, which would be by far the largest event that's being held not only in the state, but some of our clubs that are located outside of the state. But what I would say is if you're interested in coming and want to purchase tickets, you need to go to Eventbrite. We have premier tables for 8 that are available for $1,000. And we also have reserve tables for $500 for 8 people. And there's certain things that go along with each one of those tables, libations for the people that whoever buys the table invites. And hopefully they'll be right up front, right where you can see Coach Beamer and see the program really up close and personal. The other thing, too, is if you want to bring your children, we want this to be a children-friendly event. Tickets for them are only $15. If you come in by yourself and not sitting at a table, the tickets are $35. So I think it's a reasonable ticket price to be able to come out and have a meal, listen to the coaches, and get excited about Gamecock football.
Another way you can purchase tickets, if you can't find it on Eventbrite, you can email the Lexington County Gamecock Club. It is lcgcftbl@yahoo.com. I'll repeat that, lcgcftbl@yahoo.com. And as Mr. Rawl mentioned, general admission tickets, $35. So Mr. Rawl, and I've known you for a long time. That's why I'm going to keep calling you Mr. Rawl, because you coached me in baseball when I was 13 years old, and Aaron was a year younger than me. So, but in dealing with Shane, and you've had the opportunity to deal with him, just talk about the hospitality, kind of the openness, and the way he's kind of approached getting back into these type of meetings and wanting to interact with the South Carolina fan base.
Well, I'll just have to say this, Bill, and it's not to be critical or any of our previous coaches, okay? But Shane's willingness to get out and develop the relationships with the individuals club is just, in my opinion, a lot better than other coaches. Now, the other coaches participated in some way, but it's just his personality, his coaches' personalities. He's just easy to talk to, easy to get along with. He's not one of these guys that you're intimidated by. He's just a genuine guy that wants to be the coach of the Carolina Gamecocks, and at the same time begin that winning tradition that we had under Coach Spurrier and Coach Holtz, and it's really what we need to do is to elevate our game and all. And he came out to our golf tournament, and we're used to having some of the coaches out there, but he had his entire staff out there for our golf tournament back in April. And when you start talking about having 20 people there, that's a commitment not only by him, but his staff to develop the type of relationships that they need to have in our communities, because who are their supporters? The Gamecock Club members. They're the people that's been involved with the Gamecock Club for years and years and years, and we continue to support them. And it just makes it real, real easy when you've got a coach that's willing to come out and meet, slap you on the back, shake hands, talk to you, answer your questions personally. And it's an exciting day. And, like I said, I'm not trying to be critical of Coach Spurrier or Coach Holtz or Coach Muschamp, but it's a different day when you want to actually talk to a coach that you see out on the field and is a high profile type guy in the sport of football.
He's Lexington County Gamecock Club's Otis Rawl, father of Aaron Rolfe, Gamecock pitcher that if you go back at all with Gamecock baseball, all the success that Aaron had, including starting as a freshman in the national championship game against Texas back in 2002. We were just talking about this, Otis. I wonder your thoughts about Gamecock football in the last several years, putting a bunch of true freshmen out of the quarterback position. And yesterday our conversation was about the Pro Football Focus ranking of Luke Doty way down at 125 out of 130. What do you make of the quarterback position moving forward, especially for the Gamecocks under Shane Beamer?
Well, I'm always real leery of any of these sports rankings and things that kind of stuff, because when you really start talking about rankings, and Brad Lowen's a real good friend of mine, and he talks about 3 stars, 5, 4 stars, 5 stars, and who makes those kids who they are coaches in their evaluations and things of that sort. And Brad was always one of these kind of guys that says, I want my guys to stay under the radar where I can get a 5-star guy that may be rated a 3-star, and I'm not going to talk about them quite the same way. I'm really surprised that Doty was ranked so low simply because he was an Elite 11 quarterback only 2 years ago, and he went to that camp and came out like number 5 or number 6. I mean, I really and truly, I think all he has to do is have experience, and there's no exception for experience and getting in a game type situation, being under the pressure and having to perform. And I think given the chance to do that, I think Luke Doty will be fine. I think really the quarterback sometimes gets too much credit for winning, and at the same time, too much credit for losing. And it really happens up front. And I think if we can block and tackle on the offensive and defensive lines, and looks like we're filling our needs in the defensive backfield, I think we go have a good year. Whether we go win 8 or 9 ball games, I don't know. But I'm hoping that we can win 6 or 7 ball games and surprise a couple people. And I'm hoping that Luke Doty can really step up and learn to play the game, learn to see the game from the quarterback position, and lead South Carolina to some victories. I mean, think about it, same kind of guy that Connor Shaw was. He's a dual threat type quarterback. I think he's got a chance to be good, but there's nothing like experience and getting experience in a game type situation that will make you improve.
Again, he's Otis Rawl on the Love Chevy phone lines, joining us now from the Lexington County Gamecock Club. They're going to have an event on July 26th where you can get out to Williams-Brice Stadium. You can see several different Gamecock coaches speaking, get some autographs, eat some barbecue, and you can get tickets. We've got the email address up on the screen right now, or you can go to Eventbrite, the email LCGC for Lexington County Gamecock, and then football FTBL at yahoo.com. Mr. Rawl, my other question for you, talking about experience there, then, how do you, as a longtime Gamecock fan, kind of figure it out in your brain or come to a conclusion? How do you, I guess, weigh it with Shane Beamer not having experience as a first-year head coach, and yet knowing all the experience he does have, 21 years, I think, as an assistant, and some of these other assistant coaches that the Gamecocks have, not having that SEC experience that especially the Will Muschamp staff had and Steve Spurrier staff before them, coming into this thing with kind of a fresh set of eyes, but not having that experience in the SEC maybe necessarily to lean on?
Well, Bill, I think that can be overrated sometimes. I've seen a lot of assistant coaches be elevated to head coaches that haven't made it, okay? Then I've seen a lot of assistant coaches when you look at it like Lincoln Riley and even the school up the road there with a inexperienced coach, really make it with, offensive coordinators that have come from other schools and all. I put Shane in that same classification. I think it's not an issue of experience. It's everything about OJT, on the job training. I think he's got to learn. I think he's surrounded himself by some older guys that's got plenty of experience, whether it's NFL experience or whether it's additional college experience. And he's got some coaches that have been really good as position coaches in other jobs. And, you can talk about head coaching, but really head coaching is about managing. And he's just got to make sure, I think, that he delegates the authority to his assistant coaches, let them do the job, make sure they're on the same page. And he's really more of a manager and an administrator. Now, he's going to take blame, and he's got to make calls during the game and all. And he's got to manage the game to some extent. But really, when it gets down to it, unless you're a Spurrier, you're letting your assistant coaches do their job, and then you work during the week to improve your players. And I think that's the biggest thing, Bill, for me, is I want us to get kids, and I want our coaches to be able to coach these kids up. I don't want to see them come in here and remain, status quo the same way they came in. If we can coach these kids up, and I think we can with the coaching staff that we've got, I'm excited about Justin Stepp. I mean, what he's bringing to the table with the wide receivers. I think our offensive coordinator has got NFL experience. So, I mean, I think Coach Satterfield's could do a really nice job there. So he surrounded his people by the right people. I think he's just got to manage, administer, and make sure he helps on the recruiting trail to get the type of kids we need.
Totally understand where you're coming from there. I know, Bill, you had a few questions for Otis about the new name, image, and likeness from his perspective of being a father of a former Gamecock pitcher who was outstanding in his Carolina career, and Aaron Rawl back in the day, and how things have changed now.
Yeah, before we let you go, let's just get your opinion as a parent of two collegiate athletes. Obviously, your daughter went and played volleyball down in Charleston as well, so you're familiar with the college level and everything that goes in with the time that they've got to spend, whether it's training or school or off-season workouts. But, you talk about this name, image, likeness deal. How would have you handled that back in the day? What advice would have you offered your children as college athletes, and how would have you helped manage that situation? How do you think parents should manage that situation now for their children moving forward that are college athletes?
Well, Bill, I think the first thing is that, I think, let me just say personally, I've got mixed feelings about this whole scenario. I think kids that are given the opportunity to play at the college level and receiving over $100,000 worth of benefit and income, plus the stipends that they get to play athletics, particularly football. Now, basketball, men's and women's, a little bit different than baseball and some of these other sports and all. But I don't know whether we would have participated in that. I think it can create a lot of animosity within the teams. You're going to have kids that are going to have a lot better brand than other kids. And, when that comes down, jealousy is a bad thing. And jealousy is one of the 7 deadly sins. And I just worry about it creating a different environment in the clubhouse and on the field. And, you get somebody like us maybe that's got the wherewithal to handle our own situation versus a kid that may not have the same situation. They got to go hire an agent and things of that sort. It all gets a lot more complicated than just, I'm going to brand myself and I'm going to charge $50 to sing happy birthday or send a birthday card to you. The other thing that I worry about is, or maybe not worried so much about, this really could probably help in a lot of ways. There's a lot. We all know that every team's got a bag man. Every team has got people out there, and they're paying kids and in the recruiting process. And it's kind of thing that nobody wants to talk about, okay? But I think this may actually bring some sunlight into the situation where you can create some type of consulting firm or some type of firm to handle the money from the boosters going to the players. And, maybe this contracting a consulting firm can purchase the stuff and move the money around and all. And that's going to be one of the interesting things to see in the long run is how this plays out, particularly when the third parties get in there and start managing these kids' likenesses and how they negotiate contracts and, what are they promising high school kids? What are they going to get paid when they get to college? And I really think it's at times the rich are going to get richer. The teams that's got the largest boosters and the backing and got big donors and things of that sort. I mean, you take a Michigan, you take a Alabama, you take any of the Power 5 conferences. I just worry about it really just changing the whole layout of college athletics. And then the last thing I'll say about that is that I think the NCAA is just giving up a lot of what they have been accustomed to doing and allowing the states to kind of define how these kids are going to be rewarded. Of course, every state legislature is going to do it differently, and that causes real problems. What else is causing it is, I think, the transfer portal. All this is going to play together when you start talking about kids and where to go, how to go get paid, and that kind of stuff. It complicates college athletics a lot. But the one thing I worry more about is what I said first, is animosity with kids and how one kid's going to get paid more just because they're a superstar or they're in a position where their likeness let's talk about the school upstate. Take Trevor Lawrence. What's his likeness would have been in college if this would have been there versus all the other players on his team? If it doesn't scare you as a coach and as assistant coach and all, it should. It really should.
He's Mr. Otis Raw, president of the Lexington County Gamecock Club. You can check out their event coming up Monday, July 26th. It'll be at the Traditions Club, the 400 level. A lot of people didn't get to go in there last year because of capacity rules, but you can go check it out yourself. The doors open at 5:30, a barbecue buffet at 6. The program will begin at 7. Shane Beamer will highlight it, but you've got men's soccer coach Tony Annan, swimming and diving coach Jeff Popple, Gamecock volleyball head coach Tom Mendoza, and Frank Martin will be there as well. That should be pretty interesting to hear Frank talk about his team. There will be parking down off of Key Road. You'll have a cash bar, a silent auction, and again, that autograph session, $35 for general admission tickets, $1,000 for a premium reserved table, a seating for 8, 1 athletic coach if available, and 2 complimentary drink tickets. You can go purchase these. You can send in an email to purchase them, lcgcftbl@yahoo.com. Mr. Raw, I appreciate you joining us this morning. Hope you have a great rest of the week and good luck on what looks like a fantastic event.
Well, it's going to be a fantastic event. I hope y'all can be there and join us, and I hope that you can report on Tuesday morning after the event what an exciting night it had been, and that, the Gamecocks fan base is getting excited about a new coach, a new team, a new time in South Carolina football.
Otis Raw, thanks for joining us. Next time we talk to you on the phone, we'll break down the deficiencies of 13-year-old Bill Gunter playing baseball. That sound good?
All right.
Yeah,
thank you, guys. Be good.
Take care. Yeah. There's some scintillating radio right there. He was short. He was slow. He didn't hit particularly well from either side of the plate. Didn't have a set position. There's a lot that could have been broken down.
But, boy, could that guy talk some Gamecock football in the dugout. Couldn't get him to concentrate on the game at all, but he could tell you about some Gamecock football.
Hey, I could go through some big league chew with the best of them. Wasn't that it? The little pack.
And you were probably like betting and all that kind of stuff, betting big league chew in the dugout as well.
I can see those negotiations.
There was some
bookie.
Dollar bills being passed around as to what the next teammate was going to do at the plate.
Mm-hmm.
Dramatic conclusion of the show coming up. All-Star game thoughts from last night and some reaction to the Athletics article about recruiting in the state of South Carolina as it pertains specifically to Carolina and Clemson. You're listening to the early game here on 107.5 The Game.
Your 24/7 sports station.
I'm feeling pretty good. Pretty good.
107.5 The Game.
timing is everything. We talk about it all the time here on the program. And man, the housing market right now, absolutely on fire. Buford Lending wants to help you take advantage of your situation. And what Benji Getzi and their team down at Buford Lending, who's been doing it for almost 25 years, what they can guarantee you is that their experience allows them to help you maximize your specific situation. I can tell you from firsthand experience with Buford Lending that not only have the numbers that they've shown me been absolutely outstanding when you're talking about interest rate and mortgage options, but what I value the most in life these days is being able to trust who I'm working with. And I have been able to rely on Benji Getzi and his team at Buford Lending being there for me when I need them the most in these processes that can get a little heated at some times, and you need your lender. You need exactly what is required at an exact time. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, Buford Lending will do that for you. Give them a call, 843-524-2404. Again, that's Benji Getzi, his team down at Buford Lending. Let them be your lender, 843-524-2404.
From the Shepherd's Glass Traffic Center, Shepherd's Glass, a true.
Thanks, Hope. Teddy D also enjoyed hearing from Mr. Rawl there, he says on the text line. So Bill, remind me to talk to you about the Darian Stewart golf tournament when we get done here with
I heard you telling Jen that at one point. I'd walked away with. Sounds good. Oh, kind of excited for the British Open tomorrow. Sit here and do the show and watch that, talk about that.
Yeah.
You want to get
you take it.
You know what? I would probably take Koepka, although he said he didn't like the course, but
You just love that guy. I'm a man crush.
of Koepka.
Uh-huh.
You guys don't keep track. Remember, I was anti-Koepka a couple weeks ago, then I was back on the Koepka bandwagon.
I don't buy your fake radio takes.
Hope, I think it actually the first tee time is 3:30 Eastern time. I think. Just seems mean. Our texter Charles says I was a terror at the concession stand at 13 years old, not in the batter's box. That is true. My baseball, I maxed out baseball ability somewhere around 11 or 12. So we do what all short people did. We went over to the basketball side of things and proceeded to play basketball.
Clearly, that made sense.
Worked out.
We're going to ask you for a pick for the British Open. Just one name this time. Anybody you want. Just be aware. Bill, I got you down for Koepka. That sound right?
No, give me a second. I'll make an official pick. Give me a second.
You go into the so you got to take somebody with higher odds. Is that what you're doing?
No, I'm just gonna look and see. Koepka. So it's according to Vegas Insider, John Rahm has got the best odds, 15-2. Koepka's next. He's 16-1. Schauffele 18-1. Thomas is 18-1.
Wow, I got DeChambeau next on CBSSports.com, 14-1.
I really, honestly, I was trying. I really think. I don't know if an American's going to win it. And I know John Rahm is John Rahm from Spain? Because he played golf at Arizona State. Did he come from Spain or?
He is from Spain, yes, sir.
But he was recruited to Arizona State?
Correct.
So I wonder if he moved. I wonder if his family moved to America just because, I mean,
Because of golfing?
well, just moved. I mean, just because
Torrey Pines feels like home for him, but no, I think he's still over in Spain.
Do I know?
He said Torrey Pines, that's where he proposed to his wife, and the whole thing says it feels like home. So I'm thinking Spain is still where he lives.
No, he lives in Scottsdale.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I'm just wondering because, you would think if he was over there, if he stayed in Spain, he would have just started playing professionally early on like Sergio did or somebody.
All right, we're heading back in. Guys are up.
Uniforms were brutal. On-field interviews, pretty cool touch. All-Star game last night. Good to see former Gamecock Whit Merrifield back in that All-Star game, second time. Unfortunately, didn't get a hit in his 2 at-bats, but it was on the winning side, the 8th straight for the American League, I believe. If you haven't checked out that article on The Athletic about recruiting in the state of South Carolina, it's interesting. It kind of started by saying, one of the anonymous high school coaches saying that Carolina has its version now of Dabo Swinney and kind of set the map, the roadmap, or a model for success in college football. We'll see how that works for Shane Beamer and company. And again, great hearing from Lexington County Gamecock Club President Otis Rawl about the July 26th event they're having at Williams-Brice Stadium, where Shane Beamer will kind of headline. Frank Martin also part of the festivities. You can buy tickets on Eventbrite. And again, that's July 26th at Williams-Brice. And Bill, we got to give some picks for the British Open here in the last few minutes we have here on air before this is going to tee off well before we start our show tomorrow.
Yeah,
So,
I was in
you
here.
told me Brooks Koepka you thought it was going to be your pick. Are you going to stick with it or not?
Yeah, I'm going to go with it. I like Victor Hovland, but this is his first British Open, and so I'm going to stay away from him. I kind of like John Rahm, but I'll stay away from him. He's the favorite is what I have here. And I don't see Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, Rory McIlroy playing well enough right now to win. Koepka's just consistent. He's going to be near the top. He said so yesterday. He said, I'll be in one of the final groups on Sunday. He's confident. I mean, that's a guy who really does just believe when it's major time, he's going to win it.
Well, I'm just not a fan. I'm going to go with Paul Casey, a guy who I had to look it up. He hadn't won a major, but just had a good performance in the U.S. Open where he finished tied for 7th. He was tied for 2nd at the 2020 PGA Championship. Best finish at the British is tied for 3rd back in 2010, and he's tied for 4th at the Masters. He's from over there, and he has been around and always seems to be around in these big-time events. Can he close it is the question. I think this might be the time for 43-year-old Paul Casey to get his first major win. Jen, what about you? Who are you going with as your British Open champ? Oh.
Okay.
Wow, not a bad pick at all. Schauffele, I got it 16-1 odds, 3rd best or 4th best, maybe right in front of me. Just happy to have some golf on during the show tomorrow. We'll certainly keep you updated as we move along this week. Thursday and Friday, we'll have the live updates for you. Good talking Gamecock football as always this morning. And All-Star game has now happened. I feel like, Bill, we moved to the second half of the summer once the old Midsummer Classic has been played, and that means football season is that much closer.
Just 2 business days away from SEC Media Day getting going. So, and we got golf to fill those.
I don't know why Charles felt the need to say a 13-year-old Bill Gunter was a terror at the concession stand, not so much in the batter's box.
Cowtails were a quarter. Dominated those Cowtails.
Remember that kid? I was like, hey, man, pay attention to the game.
Cowtail and a corn dog.
Thank you, DC, Anthony. Appreciate you guys joining us as always. And we'll do it again tomorrow.
Tomorrow with golf.